Informer Show. I am your host. My name is Ben Hanson. I'm joined by my permanent co-host, Timothy Turi.
My goodness, Ben Hanson, thank you for that introduction. What a nice introduction.
Thank you. You're welcome here every time.
Thank you. I'll try to make it.
All right. We also have two special guests, very special. We have the great Daniel Tack.
It's good to be here.
What's your middle name, Dan?
Begins with an S.
Steven?
It is not Steven.
Squid Lips?
It is not Squid Lips.
All right, moving
Simon?
on. We have Kimberley Wallace here as well.
Miss Kimberley Wallace.
That's
Hello.
right. She only refers to herself in third person.
That's from my best friend's wedding.
Oh,
I was in a movie, okay?
Is that true? There's a
Yes.
Kimberley Wallace at my best friend's wedding?
Yes, and there's the big karaoke scene where they introduce her. So my whole life, people would just be like, Miss Kimberley Wallace, and that was all that would happen. So it's real. I'm not kidding.
So that's like for you, that's your version of the thing that's followed me for a good chunk of my life, which is the Tibba!
Oh, boy.
Live it a lie, Tibba. Or
Well, there's the
Mary
Jurassic
Poppins music.
Oh, yeah, the Tim Turi.
Yeah, you did the Jurassic Park one.
The Jurassic Park. No, Tim. That's always really fun to do.
Yeah.
I got How You Been. That's a big one for me. It's like, how you been, Ben?
What about Ben
And they get
Handsome
slapped.
or Ben Hands On?
I got both of those.
Yeah.
Depends on who it is. It's either negative or a positive.
Anyway, this is the first segment that we're going to be covering here, right? Is just our names.
That's
and
right.
This is really awesome.
Pretty sad
Personal
about.
I think we're off
stories.
to a great start.
Okay, so this episode, we're covering a lot of stuff. We're going to talk about the Tacoma cover story, which we
Should I raise it up?
unveiled. Yeah, raise it up for the video,
And
folks.
this is a pretty cover. It's one of my favorites.
Yeah,
so
it's an
far.
interesting one. So that is our new cover story for Game Informer. We're going to be rolling out a month of content for that. We're also going to talk about Final Fantasy XIV's expansion, going to talk about Rocket League, her story,
Yes.
Tales from the Borderlands, the Portal mod, and then in the second segment, which is basically a post-credits segment, we're going to be spoiling the crap out of Batman Arkham Knight. So please keep that in mind.
Post-credits.
You'll be warned before we click into that
Post-credits.
segment.
There could not
Oh,
be
boy.
more of a warning, but the idea is we're going to close it out with the ending theme and everything. Then it's going to pick back up for those folks that want to stick around. If you finished Arkham Knight or if you don't give a crap about the story and just want to hear people
Yeah.
fully spoil everything, I think it should be a fun chat.
We're also answering emails.
Yeah, that's right.
This week, so they return after a couple weeks hiatus, or just 1 week.
Just 1 week because of the Halo Spectacular. So thanks for
Yeah.
the good feedback on the Halo Spectacular. It's fun to see how those analytics shake out, where it seems like some people don't download it because maybe they're not interested in Halo, but then like the views on the site and the YouTube version are up because more people are attracted to it because it's Halo.
I
So
think
it's a
people
weird-
like. I think people like Halo overall.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's fun to do those spectaculars with like a more approachable, wide-ranging subject like, a console history like Nintendo 64 and stuff like that. So,
Yeah, and if you
that'd be
liked
cool.
the N64 Spectacular and the Halo Spectacular, like I don't know, you could tweet at us or something, or send in some suggestions to podcast@gameinformer.com. Maybe we'll do different ones in the future. You can
Yeah,
count on it.
I heard you guys read those, so.
Yeah, we read those emails.
Yeah, that's very
Just
true.
did that this morning.
So starting out, let's talk about the big news of the week for us here at Game Informer, which is the Tacoma cover story.
Yes.
Kim, when we announced that, I saw a lot of people on Twitter say, what the hell is Tacoma?
I know there's a lot of Taco Bell jokes going on with it.
I heard someone say that it sounded like a truck, which
Okay.
sounds like a
I
nice truck.
think it is a truck,
A
isn't it?
reliable
Well,
truck.
there's actually a Tacoma, Washington. That's where the name came from. Originally, this game was going to be set in Tacoma, Washington. And then Steve Gaynor had an epiphany on Wizard Island and decided that they were going to go with like another house game, but a completely different like person you're going to get to know about, obviously, but
Sure.
in a new setting. And then he was like, oh, I don't want to do another house game.
So keep in mind, this is Steve Gaynor, the creative director
Yes.
of Gone Home. So this is
From Fulbright.
Yeah, from
yeah.
Fulbright.
Right.
So he decided, was looking for an isolated place that he could set it in, and thought of a space station. And his wife was like, "That'd be really cool." And then he just started spinning ideas. So that is how Tacoma came to be, and they decided to stick with the name.
It's cool. I like the idea of a space station called Tacoma. I like the idea of any game that kind of singles out a relatively small town like Tacoma. It must be exciting for the folks in that town.
Yeah, that is true.
I guess so. But what'd you learn on your cover story trip? Because you went
Well-
out to, what, Portland?
Yes, my first time in Portland.
There we go.
Nice place.
Nice place.
Had fun.
right.
But yeah, basically Tacoma is a transfer point. So in this this is set in 2088 in the future. So not too far, but enough where like they're speculating space travel might be...
None of us will make it.
Will be something that's possible, but for like the rich people elite. So it's no longer where like just astronauts can go into space. If you're a rich man, like a multimillionaire, you can afford to go. And so what it is there's like a space elevator, and
what does that look
takes
like?
you up. Oh,
Have you seen
they didn't see me.
Willy
They didn't
Wonka?
show me in.
A space
But
elevator.
That's
Yeah.
pretty much
The Great Space
just
Elevator?
think of it like that.
Okay.
And Tacoma is a transfer point, so it's kind of like an airport terminal in a way before you get to the moon. So this is when people are traveling from the Earth to the moon. It's kind of a waypoint in between.
And is it like an alien thing where something's gone awry in the space station?
Well, so anyways, you show up, you play as Amy Ferrer, and it's your first day on the job. You're replacing an operations specialist, and you show up, and nobody's around. What's going
Leon
on?
S. Kennedy syndrome. Whoa, where's everybody? What's the problem here?
The space president's daughter.
I'm the rookie, but there's probably less zombies.
So yeah, it's very much like Gone Home, first-person exploration, where you're just searching to find answers. Except this time around, you have actually like AR recordings that show different scenes that played out before you got there. And when you go into Tacoma, basically you agree to have your body's positional data tracked. That's so they can let people know if there's an emergency and just make sure everybody's at their posts where they need to be.
So it's kind of like the recordings. I feel like I've used this analogy before, but the recordings in Prometheus, where they can see like the holograms of where the people were and stuff like that.
Yes, exactly. Okay, good. Yeah, that's a good analogy there.
And then they cut off an elephant's head or something.
So you can see these these recordings with like people's body positions, and like above them is like the portrait of the person.
Okay.
And they're fully voiced. So
Okay.
you actually get to watch them like interact, but kind of have an idea in your head how they played out, the scene plays out.
So you're seeing like silhouettes, yeah.
And they're
with
colored
portraits.
different
Okay.
colors, so you know it's a different
Keep track
person.
of it.
And you can follow different characters because some will go
Okay.
in different directions. And the point is to replay some of them to see which each character does and what you missed in different conversations.
This is interesting because I feel like Steve Gaynor must be a fan of like immersive theater, which we talked about like on one of our first episodes of this podcast. And is that the way it kind of plays out? Is they're all kind of playing in different parts of the space station? You can follow whoever you want to get their version of the story?
Well, you hit an AR recording, and there's
Okay.
different places, and they're all in different positions, but
Gotcha.
those come up throughout. And you basically your only lifeline is the station computer Odin, who when you
Okay.
first enter the station, you have to get him back online. So
I just want to point out Dan Tack is just staring me down and nodding silently like, yeah, you know Odin. Did you? What does that nod mean?
You know, Odin.
Oh, I see.
nobody messes with Odin.
Sure.
But that's part of the thing. Like, how much can you trust that this computer hasn't been manipulated? Why are you seeing the AR recordings that you are?
I'm sorry, Dan Tack, stop looking at me.
I'm sorry.
It's really freaking me out.
That's good.
All right. Sorry, so you don't know how much you can trust Odin.
Yeah. But and what's cool about this is because you are in space, you can always change perspective and search the ceiling, which also has like hidden like chutes and
Interesting.
ladders.
I'm curious, what were all of your feelings on Gone Home?
I thought it was a really neat little game. Then when people start layering on too much praise, I feel like I'm sure even the developers don't want to put too much pressure on that thing because it was a neat little experience that I'm glad I had. It's probably where I'd land on that. It didn't.
Okay.
I don't think they made my top 10 that year.
Sure. It's very measured reaction.
Yeah.
From you. How about
Yeah.
you? How about you, Dan?
I think I'm going towards Ben's opinion here.
Come on over.
You know, without. I don't want to say like, you know, it's overrated or anything like that, but like, yeah, I do feel like it's very cool for what it is, but I also like on the other side of the fence, like, yeah, you know, yeah, that's a thing.
I have a feeling that Kim and I are probably in like a different camp then, where I think maybe you and I are a little bit more excited about like that whole concept and the way it was handled. I don't know. I loved exploring that house. Like it felt really, really good and authentic.
Tim, please give your pitch for how you wanted this cover story to go with Kim.
Oh, how the story would be written.
Yeah.
Well, it was
This
just a
is so
suggestion after you know we got a hint of that,
And it
that
wouldn't
could
have
happen.
worked with how their studio was set up, but go ahead.
It wouldn't have.
No.
Okay, all right.
And it's a bad idea, but go ahead.
Oh, the idea was essentially like Kim would go into Fulbright's studio before any of the dev team showed up and just explore all the spaces and like the desks and stuff, and just basically rummage through all of their things like Gone Home and try to compare that information to what she got from the interviews,
Right.
Which is now reminding me of another game we're going to talk about later. But anyway,
Right.
Anyway, yeah, I loved Gone Home. Do you think that like the sort of like, you know, like what made like Gone Home so cool is it felt like really authentic, and it was just this easy anchor point, like nostalgic wise for the 90s, like something that there's baked in feelings that people are going to feel when they are in a house like that that's based on an era that we all lived. How is that kind of going into Tacoma so far? Do you feel like how
What I kind of like about Tacoma is you are exploring something that's unfamiliar. So that there's that feeling of like, what do they think the future is going to be like in 2088, and how are people living off this space station? And part of the fun is seeing all the different like, you know, recreations of like coffee and stuff in space that they make, and finding out exactly what this world's actually about, because Gone Home, like, it fits so well with that nostalgia and expectations. This, you go in and you don't know what to really expect, because what they have for the future, well, seems very like in the realm of what could happen in 2088. There's still a lot of like, oh, so that's how that works. Okay. And you're learning about the world, which I think is a good change of pace for them. You can't just come back exactly at the same thing either.
Does it feel like they're biting off the appropriate amount? Because they're still a really small studio, and just the idea of like having abstract shapes as kind of the characters. They don't have to worry too much about fidelity.
Exactly. And they doubled their studio size. They added on, so now they're like a team of 8 instead of 4 like before. But even for that, they're going for the same kind of like, you know, Gone Home was a shorter experience. It was, you know, you played it over, you either finished it in one sitting or over the course of a night or two. That kind of seems, we asked them what they're going for here, which is very, very much a game that is a little bit of a greater experience, but it's not going to be an epic, like 50-hour epic by any means. Still a couple of hours. And the thing that's different too is before, like, Gone Home was centered on a family, but it was basically Sam's game, you know? It was her who you really learned about. In this, it's a whole crew, and all of them, it's a bigger focus there. Like, all these crew members have their own things that they're dealing with. I mean, what's cool about this is every member takes like a year stint to be on space. That's as long as you can be in space without it affecting your bone density. Remember that?
Remember that, kids.
So they're basically isolated for a year because they can't get off this space station. They have to stay there. I mean, people come and go through the terminal of going before they go to the moon, but they're stuck with each other, and they've got to learn how to survive together and get along. And it's kind of like, think about it. This is what I think is cool about it. If you lock people up in like the real world house, but they could never even leave that house, how freaking crazy
like
would stuff?
like real world space.
It's like,
oh, you mean Sex House, the Onion parody?
Oh, God,
it's exactly
that's
that
actually
plot.
worth watching.
It's amazing.
I'm excited, Kim, because like I feel like I've gotten a taste of this through Alien Isolation, reading like email exchanges and stuff. And like,
funny enough, they did play that game to give them ideas for Tacoma. I was in there,
I'm happy they're forthcoming about that. I love it when people are just like, yeah, this inspired us. But I didn't want to spend 20 hours on Sevastopol, so the fact that this is like maybe longer than Gone Home, but not quite 20 hours on a goddamn space station, I'm into that.
I was definitely impressed with what I saw. It had that great feeling that I felt when I first stepped into the world of BioShock, of Rapture, and I know like that they don't shy away from. They worked on BioShock 2, and Steve Gaynor actually went on and worked on part of BioShock Infinite. They put like little like signs or tricks, you know, like in Gone Home they had the Ken Levine salad dressing. Like they're very like little coy, you know, references to the fact that they are very inspired by this. But I liked that I felt that like that, just that awe and wonder, and it felt different than walking into the door of Gone Home, where I'm like, oh yeah, this is a house I've lived in before, and this is just like, wow, I have to figure out what the heck this is all about.
They mentioned VR at all? Did you guys talk about that at all?
We talked a little bit about stuff like with the technology, but not too much in that.
coming first to Xbox One and
there you
PC.
go. Okay.
And
PC.
so it kind of, I'm sure if PS4 got the deal and Sony got the deal, it might be pushing Morpheus a little bit harder and whatnot for it. But
It just seems so tailor-made for
Oh,
it.
it
Like
really
a drift
does.
and stuff like that. You know, it
Yeah.
seems like there's experiences like this that
right.
would work
Yeah,
really
I
well.
definitely asked them if they've thought of VR, and obviously, I think this is the first-person exploration games. I think that's the best genre for it.
Yeah, because it's not super fast-paced,
Mm-hmm.
and you know you don't have to worry about like skill-based like twitchy gameplay. So,
Yeah, definitely. So you want to tease what we have coming up throughout the month of coverage?
Sure. I mean, we have plenty of interviews with Steve Gaynor and Carla, who are the co-founders, and they talk a lot about the game. We also have the new studio members that we chat with.
Oh, cool.
We kind of go into, we have an interview with the voice actress, Sarah Grayson, who also voiced Sam, and now she's voicing the main in Gone Home, and now voicing the main character in Tacoma.
Sure.
We have, cool concept art of like where this game started from then to now, and kind of
alright.
seeing how it evolved, which I always find it so interesting that like for this, they start out making another house and then kind of just evolved to the first ideas to the space station. And even just seeing how it grew from there was really interesting. I mean, they have a whiteboard in their office where they just speculate what's going on in the world in 2088, whether or not it makes it in their fiction or not.
That sounds
it's
awesome.
just
yeah,
that's how creative, like the energy is good there. So
Yeah.
that's awesome.
That'd be really fun just to have that board up all the time and just come up with other little nooks and crannies. Like, oh yeah, I guess in the future this would also be a factor. I love that weird expanded universe that even doesn't touch the game. But how about that video content, huh? That Wade produced out
yeah,
there?
that's what I'm saying. He's got some good interviews. Oh, I forgot the best part.
Right.
We did a Let's Play of Gone Home with Steve and Carla.
Entirety?
Yes.
That's
That's
fantastic.
really cool. I thought the
It's
coolest part was like the extended gameplay of Tacoma.
Yeah, we also have that going. Let me get there.
All right.
Yeah, we also, that's actually what we're starting with very soon, is you actually get to see part of the pre-alpha footage, so keep your expectations that it's not in its final form, but actually get to see the opening of Tacoma and a few of the places that you explore in the beginning, which is really exciting.
And
No
that's-
one's seen that before. Hey.
Yeah. Coming up on Friday, right?
Yep,
Cool. Look forward to that. Hey, that game sounds neat, Kim.
it is.
Dan
I'm
Tack,
guaranteeing
Yes.
it.
I want you to close those eyes of yours
No.
and open that mouth of yours.
Yeah, is that right?
And tell us all about Final Fantasy XIV's expansion.
It's a big expansion.
People just keep calling it Heavensward.
And that's, yeah.
Is that how you
I
pronounce
didn't
it?
realize
It
it
might
was
be wrong.
Heavensward, is it?
Heavensward, whatever.
Heavensward, like Skyward,
Yeah.
right?
I never realized that. I thought it was
Man.
Heavensward.
Right.
Yeah, that's how I was
'Cause you
pronouncing
can
it for a
fly.
while, and now I feel like a
Yeah, so tell us about Heavensward.
Yeah, not going to get into a debate about how to pronounce it or anything.
Yeah, what's the
but,
Heavensward
too late.
on Heavensward?
It is a large expansion, so tons of new content, new level cap, so players are going from 50 to 60, 3 new classes, tons of new places to explore, and flying is in the game now. So these are lots of things that,
What direction do you
Get a
fly?
chocobo mount.
up and to the side and a little bit to the right. a little
Only
bit to the left.
underground flying. Give us your arc of affection for the Final Fantasy XIV roller coaster?
Certainly. So, when I started out with this, I had a level 50 character already, so a level capped character ready to go into the expansion.
I would
You-
expect nothing less from you, Dan.
And that's what you have to, like, this is not a good thing for newcomers at all. Like, you have to be leveled up to 50.
You do need to do all of the previous story content in order to access the expansion.
Jesus.
cow.
That's like the antithesis of Blizzard's philosophy.
It's something like 300 some quests, I believe.
Is it a smart
Holy
idea?
diver.
Now, see, there's been a lot of debate about this, whether getting the content is the correct idea. And in some regards, I want to be clear about this, because this is I'm actually of two worlds on this.
Crystal clear.
I understand from the story perspective that the Final Fantasy XIV does provide like this very, very robust single player story experience.
By robust, do you mean good, or do you mean a lot of it?
Sufficient.
Or a lot
I
of it?
am not, people who know me know that I'm not really a big story driven kind of guy. So for me, I like to just click through stuff a lot. However,
Maybe,
You are the
maybe why you
worst.
didn't like Gone Home then.
Yeah, you are the
Gone Home
worst.
took me about 5 minutes.
Diary, where's the key? I don't know. Okay.
No.
right.
It depends. Some game story content does grab me.
All right.
And eventually I warmed to Final Fantasy content as well. But for the majority of the first game, well, not for pre-expansion content, I didn't really care.
It was so inconsistent
I'm
and
into it
weird.
more.
I played
It is-
like 20 hours or so of Final Fantasy XIV, and like how some cutscenes were voiced. It seems like the production levels were just all over the place.
Yeah, and I would agree that, yes, it is inconsistent and weird as far as providing story details. But some are really cool and epic, like some of the stuff we do in the expansion. But hang on.
Okay.
So I can understand this being the first expansion for a new character, like they expect you to have to go through the story before you participate in the new story. That makes kind of sense somewhat. I can get behind that maybe a little bit. You can't just jump right into the new stuff. Okay, there's a reason, because you have to go through the story. Okay. The new classes, however, should never have been gated. Those you have to have had a level 50 character in the expansion in order to unlock. So if you want to play a Machinist, Astrologian, or Dark Knight, you've got to be 50 plus and in the expansion.
Is that because their storylines pick up in areas that aren't accessible from the beginning?
Right.
And that'll like seriously change your progression, right? And what you're doing from then on in. So it's not like you can tinker with it and then go back to something else, right?
So you're literally going back. So you get into the new area and then you essentially roll back your character to one of the new classes. But not really. I mean, they're not really classes. They're jobs if you want to be specific. So you're like changing jobs like you would in a Final Fantasy game. But, you know, you go in there at level 50, you say, I want to be this new class. Boom, you're back to level 30, and you have to level up through old content again before going into the new content.
Seems not great. That idea.
That I didn't like.
Okay.
I definitely did not like that.
What
is
class
this
did you
cool?
play?
Just tell us, is it a good expansion? Bad expansion?
It is. It's been a very mixed and interesting experience playing through it. It looks great, and a lot of the new stuff is great. However, a lot of it has, you know, weird issues with it to get to it as well. Like for the leveling process, 50 to 60, I found completely agonizing.
So you'd recommend it?
Hang on.
Okay.
Going through it, it's just like, here is this really epic story quest. Go find 3 hidden Moogles in this area. Just like, okay, I did that. You come back, it's like, go find 3 other hidden Moogles. And it's just like, all right, wait a minute here.
This is main story.
Yeah, this is story content.
I'd rather play Mog House.
And it's just like, okay, I'm really sick of finding Moogles, and you know, maybe you'll do some other story stuff. And it's just like, go here, go here, go here. It's just a lot of walking, a lot of riding around on your Choco. You know, just
that's what people want, is to ride around on the Choco.
We do that. But
it leads to the question, are we in hell?
I don't know.
Let's go.
So I did not care for the questing. The fate system, which is sort of like random events that keep popping up around the world, which are pretty cool and a good way to level up in the old game. In the expansion, absolutely no one in the first 2 weeks was doing these because the experience yield for them was way less than just questing or doing stuff on your own.
Waste of time.
So yeah, nobody was doing them. So it's like, okay, what are these? All right.
This whole thing kind of sounds like a waste.
Hang on, again.
Okay, all right. I'm sorry.
It's been a weird experience.
Okay,
man,
all right.
Like these things all sound horrible.
Turning point.
No, we're not there yet.
Oh, okay.
So another thing, so we've got the flying, right? So to unlock flying in the new zones, before you can fly in each specific zone, you need to do certain quests, and then you need to go out and find ether currents, which are dotted around the map. Basically, you know, where you'd think they'd be. This corner, that corner, out of the way area over here.
What are you doing? Are you strapping big wings on a chocobo? Do you have an airship? What do you
You've got to find all these basic currents in order to get the, you know, to have the knowledge of the zone in order to fly in it.
What are you flying on, though?
You have various flying mounts, including... If you have a flying chocobo, you can do that too.
You
Flying
get
chocobos.
fat chocobo.
The fat choco can fly. You'll unlock an airship and a dragon to fly on in the expansion through the
It's like
story.
a mini airship.
Yeah, not a Final Fantasy airship. Okay. I'm talking like a Star Fox plane,
like a tiny Bronco. I'd compare it to.
Yeah.
I was gonna say. I mean, is it more like, you know, Sid High? Well, Sid's been
Sid's in the expansion. He's in everything. I mean, it's Final Fantasy.
Right. Yeah. What I meant to say is it like Sid from Final Fantasy IV and like the Red Wings?
No. That's what I'd consider a traditional Final Fantasy airship.
This is more like a Ragnarok
this is a Star
from 8.
Fox.
Okay.
Star Fox ship.
It's called an R-Wing.
It's a little one. Yeah, it's an R-Wing or A-Wing or Z-Wing.
Okay.
Whatever. But okay, so getting all those things to fly in that zone is not great, and you need to do it because otherwise... You might as well do it while you're in the zone leveling because otherwise you're going to have to go back and do it later in order to hunt down monsters and stuff. So, leveling experience, did not enjoy. Gating content, did not enjoy. Story gating, that's a personal thing.
Your butt got sore sitting there for so long playing
I don't really mind that.
You didn't say what new class did you play as?
I played the Machinist, which is the new DPS/support class, and it is... I'm not really... great about that class right now. I know there's a lot of debate about this class too. We just had some big changes in a patch yesterday, so I don't know if it fixed it.
Okay.
We got 10% more.
What
damage.
is worthwhile here, Dan?
He's getting there.
I was trying to get there, but we went on to the classes.
Let's go, baby.
Okay, so the new classes are cool, by the way. I mean, conceptually at least. I don't know if I'm doing the right damage to be able to maybe I'm just bad, right? That's a possibility, unlikely as it is.
Impossible.
Dan Tack's not bad at games. He does the math.
That's right. I did do the math, and I'm doing low DPS. So, the Astrologian is super cool. Like you draw cards to give buffs and heals and stuff. It's actually a super.
Is it a
interesting
Type
class.
0 reference?
I have no idea.
Okay, never mind.
but it's super cool. And the Dark Knight's a cool like new tank guy. So anyway, all that said, level 60 content, all that stuff done, all the painful, what I would consider, really locked in this old school MMO thinking that has no place in today's world. After that, endgame content is very good. The 2 level 60 non-story dungeons that you get access to, they're both pretty quality. You could get bored because you're just running those 2 right now, but more content's opening up. We just had the Alexander patch hit yesterday.
Okay.
So I haven't done that yet.
Do you fight him? Do you recruit him?
No, you fight inside him.
That's awesome.
Oh, weird.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like you did in 9, I think. Was that the game where you
Are
went
you
in?
fighting inside him because you're helping him or he's a jerk?
The goblins have taken... I don't know the exact storyline.
Because Alexander's like a holy church knight.
Yeah, holy cathedral. He does holy things.
Church transformer, basically.
Yeah, and it's super cool looking. Like I gotta say, the graphics in this game are amazing and super for Final Fantasy fans. Really cool stuff. Like there's some really cool like throwbacks in this. Like you get to go to, I don't know if people even remember the witch from Final Fantasy 1 in her cave with all the brooms.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
You get to go there.
Sweep.
Do
That's
they call
what
it the same
this
thing?
MMO does really well.
With the exact same thing where you like they talk in like backwards language, you have to figure it out. Same thing.
Hang on, Cam, what were you saying?
No, that's what this MMO does really well. Is if you're a Final Fantasy fan, it totally caters to all your nostalgia with it. Like everything
yeah.
pops
Wall-to-wall
up.
I feel like
it
it
does.
really
started.
good.
It started with like the trickling of the window, like, oh, Magitech armor. We're gonna throw that in for you 6 fans, and then didn't they add materia?
Oh yeah, like
Okay.
that's sort of like gem socketing, but
Right.
and
But then they
there's-
added like Costa del Sol from 7.
Yeah, and it gets way. They've got the gold saucer in there, and there's like a. It's not called the ancient library that was in 5, but it's basically the ancient library from 5. You even fight like the same bosses, and there's like books called Page 64 or whatever, the same kind of enemies you fight in 5 in that library dungeon. And of course, you've got all the primals in there now. From you have to fight Bismarck and Ravana in this game this expansion, as both sort of story content and later on level 60 content.
Here's what I think people want to know. How long do they have to play before they get to all that good stuff you were just talking about?
Right,
How
and
many
that's,
hours did you put in before you're like, oh, this end content is really
And
great?
also-
And I've only started on the end content. I know I don't have much time to talk
and
about,
also-
but it's not just the dungeons.
What the hours from before to get to 50 even. You know
Yeah,
what I
because I
mean?
hear people
But that's
really
still
defending it.
Okay, check
up
this
for
out.
the main game.
You can go pretty fast through levels now. The problem is, if you haven't done the story yet, you do have to do the story. So when I switched to a 30 machinist, getting back out to 50 took me only like a day.
Oh.
Because there's always a fate grind going in certain areas of the game. You can just Google it and find out where the
Is this a
I
Dan-
need to level from 30 to 50.
Is this a Dan Tack
It's
day?
not pleasant. Yeah, it's a Dan Tack day. So
So that means like what, 12, 15
It's probably a
hours?
12-hour day.
Okay, all right, just checking.
but that's 20 levels.
Yeah, that's fast.
That's
That's fast. So you got 12, 15 hours in on getting from 30 to 50, and then from 50 up to end game stuff that you thought was worth playing.
yeah, I'm not sure how long that took.
Ballpark.
And it wasn't all bad. The dungeons you do get to do through that are good. It's only the questing that I found to be completely
Okay.
not great. And that is a majority of what you'll be doing because you do have to go through the story to unlock everything. That's everything in Final Fantasy XIV is sort of like gated by the story. Like you've got to do story content to unlock things.
Okay.
So overall, is it worth it?
Well, it is now. Like I said, it was a hard slog. 60, the dungeons are great.
Yeah.
You get hunts. Upgrading your gear is easy. They've made it so it's easy to get groups for new content. Like Alexander, this normal raid that just came out, can be queued up for in a public style. So it's not like a super hardcore raid. That'll come out in a couple weeks for the savage difficulty.
So it may be worth it for people that put it down to come back to, but not for like first timers. This isn't.
I don't know. It still could be. This is a very MMOer's MMO. So if you like Final Fantasy and you like old school MMO design, this is very much that. Like you're doing.
Okay.
Okay, but until you get to good stuff, are we talking like 10 hours, 20 hours? I mean, what are we talking here?
I hesitate to put a number on it that I don't have, and I should have had it coming into this, but it was not 10 hours.
All right, that's what I want to know. We're doing more than that. We're up.
It was more than 10, sure. Probably more around 30, 40.
Can we say that in terms of how many other Final Fantasies you can beat within that time? It's like, it's like a 9 and a half of 6.
This is an ongoing thing that continues to have content. Like the Alexander
Right.
stuff, I'm super excited to get into.
Yeah. So there's a lot of content here.
I feel like I spent a lot of time bashing the game, but again, I think they're doing the end game right at least.
Okay,
lots
that's
of stuff
great.
to do, and normally in an MMO conversation, things really do hinge on end game. It's always the conversation. It's always like I got to level cap and it was boring, so it didn't matter how the living experience was good. This is like the exact weird opposite.
Super
for me.
weird.
Like I had no enjoyment whatsoever going through that questing.
And now you can't stop, right?
And now I'm playing for fun. So
Okay, there you go.
level
It's a
60
good
content is
endorsement.
good stuff.
Game for fun, everybody.
No, you know what I mean,
Yeah, I
right?
gotcha.
Like this is it really did turn around, and I'm glad I stuck with it long enough to know that.
Yeah. On the complete opposite side of the gaming spectrum, we did a test chamber of it yesterday, and then I went home and played Rocket League. It's out on PC and PS4. It's actually the PlayStation Plus PS4 game for July.
Okay.
One of them. So everybody with a PlayStation Plus subscription can get it for free. I really, really fell in love with this game last night. So Rocket League is just soccer with cars, basically.
Okay.
And it starts out controlling where it's like, okay, I'm just kind of nudging the ball. I think I get the basics.
Like
they have
first person, third person.
third person.
Okay, like a racing game perspective. Like I'm behind the car.
Yes. Yep. And you're
Okay.
on a giant soccer field. They have different arenas, but they're
Okay.
all basically giant soccer fields. And it's like, okay, I can start nudging the ball. That's cool. But then you start like combining the boost button. They kind of have boost pickups along the map that you can get. And then also like there's a jump button. And then when you're in the air with your jump, you can rotate your car. It basically reminds me of like SSX level of like free movement. And by the end of my PlayStation last night, it felt so good to drive a car around, like the giant ball going towards the goal and then like launching your car into the air off of a boost and doing like a rotation, basically doing like the equivalent of like a headbutt for a soccer player, except with like the hood of your car and like saving the goal based on that.
So you hit a soccer ball around.
It's a giant metallic ball.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's always it can be in the air, but then also you can fly with your car by like doing a jump and then like positioning your car just right, then like hitting the thrusters, and the car kind of does like this cool hover, so you can like still knock it out of the air. It's it's surprisingly good looking game, and it's really, really fun.
Does the ball go clang clang when you hit it?
No, it
How do you
feels
know
like
it's metallic then?
It looks like it, but it kind of sounds like it's soft.
Okay, so it sounds like a soccer ball, softer ball.
It sounds like a softer ball than a soccer ball, yeah.
Okay.
But the couple of catches with this game is, as of this recording, the online servers weren't working. So you can still do split screen, and you can play with like bots and stuff, which is what I was doing.
Yeah, how many players are there normally?
You have different game modes. You have like 1v1, 2v2, 3v3, or 4v4. That seems like the standard is 3v3, and that still gets really insane when you have bots in there. So the 4v4, I think it's even labeled as like insanity, because just complete chaos. But 1v1 can get a little bit dry, so 3v3 seems to be perfect.
It doesn't give you the 3VGVs?
It doesn't give me the 3v-GVs, no.
No, that's good. What I wanted to ask is, like, let's say I'm not a tremendous racing game fan or a
Yeah.
tremendous soccer fan. Does that matter at all here?
I wouldn't count myself as either of those. I like Mega Man Soccer,
Project Cars.
and I like Project Cars, and I like Kung Foot, the Rayman Legends minigame.
It is an esteemed company here.
Yeah, so it's basically Project Cars meets Kung Foot is how I compare
Okay.
it.
Well, we had a lot of fun with Kung Foot.
That game is so much fun. It definitely reminds you. It's like that weird indie game genre where they're adapting sports games. Seems like more and more are kind of gravitating towards this, just making super arcadey versions of sports
Yeah.
games.
So this
But
could be a good party game.
it's a great party game, especially when the online servers start working, which I have high hopes. But it's a real bummer that they launched this PlayStation Plus game and none of that crap works, because it seems like a huge component of this game.
Are you sure they're not working right now? I thought I saw some people tweeting about it earlier today.
As of, we're recording this on Wednesday, and as of like an hour ago, the director tweeted at me and said, like, we're staying up all night working on it, trying to get them up and running.
Poor guys.
Poor
Yeah, who
guys.
developed it?
Psionics is their name?
Okay. If they're staying up all night, where are they from?
I don't know.
Oh,
I don't know. But yeah, it's really fun. Apparently, there's some tech issues on PS4. People are saying that like if you leave the game on the menus on the PS4, your PS4 will overheat.
Perfect.
So there's a couple tech
Love it.
hiccups. But if you just want a fun split screen game on PC, especially now, and maybe eventually once it gets ironed up and patched out on PS4, I would definitely recommend checking it out.
Yeah, it sounds cool.
Yeah, it feels really, really great to play. Outside of that, Kim, you want to talk about her story?
Dun dun dun.
Dun dun dun.
I knew you were going to want to play this game.
Yeah. So it came out last week, 2 weeks ago.
About 2 weeks ago. Yeah, 2 weeks now.
And it's a small little game that's really picked up steam.
Yeah, one person made it, Sam Barlow. He actually was behind the writing of Silent Hill, Shattered Memories, which is one of the better ones, in my opinion, in the last few years, with regards to like story.
The
and,
way
yes,
that story was told was really
yes,
cool.
it was the gameplay stuff that got
Yeah.
me.
we motion controls.
Yeah.
I looked up
that
your
was the
review
problem.
of it actually last night, Tim, and you gave it like a 6.5. but in your closing paragraph, you cited like the story's awesome. It's
Yeah,
just
and
that
I mean
gameplay.
that's what he had involvement with. So
good.
I was interested. I knew about this game way before it came out. Actually, people are
La-di-da.
just like, well, I saw that he was working on it, and I
Yeah.
liked what he did in Shattered Memories, and I was like, all right, that sounds really cool. But I remember when I read about it, I couldn't figure out what the heck the game was
Right. Very
because
confusing. It's a weird concept.
it was a weird concept. So basically, to put it in simple terms, you are the game is set in the 90s and you're in front of a computer. And basically, you're looking up tapes regarding a case that happened about a woman's husband who goes missing. And you type in keywords. So think of it like if you can Google, you can play this game of like what you think would come up, like the word to start, murder. And then you see 5 videos, up to 5 will pop up the
Right.
top 5 always pop up during
So
the
it's like
session. So if
it's
there's
a transcript of what she's saying.
yeah, so if there's like 10 videos, you'll only get the first 5. So part of the challenge is figuring out how much more specific do I have to get to unlock those other
Right.
videos. And so these are actually like FMV videos that
Right.
you pop up and you watch, and it's an actual actress like giving her testimony when she was interviewed by detectives and police. And so you're only seeing like little snippets.
Like
and
20,
you're getting,
20 seconds to 2 minutes
Yeah.
maybe sometimes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's nice because at first it's like, oh, this entire
Yeah.
game just about watching videos. It
Yeah.
sounds lame, but
they're short.
they're so mercifully short, and then it just becomes almost like a text adventure game in a way where I'm just sitting there thinking like, okay, what else can I type in to possibly flesh this thing out?
I want to ask you guys a question because I played
Yeah.
about 45 minutes of it just
Oh,
before
wow,
we even
okay.
started here. And I think it's super cool. So far, it reminds me of like being in True Detective, and
Yeah.
I'm Marty just
Yes,
like locked away in the bottom of the archives, just trying
Just
to work.
find and that's exactly
Yeah.
what I actually interviewed Sam Barlow like last week and kind of got in his head of what he was thinking. He's like, nobody ever focuses on when those detectives have like they're doing the detective work and have that aha moment where they're like, wait a minute, those gloves are green and she wasn't wearing that before. And that's kind of what he wanted to capture with this. And so the fun of it is really piecing together what happened. He kind of has a really twisted tale as you go on.
It's
doesn't stick-
complex.
Yeah, it is complex.
There
and-
are tributaries that just kind of come
Yeah.
out just in these weird directions, and you're just kind of like, oh, that looks like an interesting thread. Like we're talking about blonde hair and fairy tales. And this is kind of like, oh, well, let's just talk about this weird trip to Glasgow over here.
Yeah,
and it's
then
just
you
like,
just type in like fairy tale
Yeah.
or Glasgow, and you get more on that event.
and you start to find out, I think a lot of this is through discovery, but like, I was wondering if this is just like,
Hang on, we're not going to spoil anything here, right?
well, no, of course not. But
Okay.
she's an interesting character. I'll
Sure.
say that much.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, it seems like the gist is you're just trying to get information about a murder out of her. What she has to do with it is totally a question mark, and it's up to you to figure that out. But what I wanted to ask is, you're talking about like, if you know how to Google, you know how to play this game, which is like, okay, well, we were having a conversation, and she mentioned something about blank, and then so now I search for blank and get more videos, hopefully. But then there's also something in there where you're supposed to assign tags. None of the videos have tags on them.
you can
Right.
like some of that stuff is just for you as a player to better be able to piece together. Part of also with it is reading the subtext. So if she maybe looks nervous when she's answering a question, if you notice that, or
like-
seems like she's holding, so you could write like tag like nervous here if you wanted to go back to it and be like, all right, is she really being honest here and upfront? He kind
Okay.
of did that to make it easier for you to piece together. Now, I didn't really use it that much.
I just used it for typing in like
yeah.
if there's something really complex, I type in confusing
Yeah.
as a cue so that I can search that later
For
and come
you,
back to the
okay?
confusing
Because
one.
I've been trying to figure out how it's going to surface. Because I've been
Yeah.
like typing in like June 1994. Like I don't know if like the dates are going to start to kind of.
The best way to play this game is with a big old pad of paper.
Yeah, that's
and
what
to-
I did. I got out
Yeah.
the pad of paper, just wrote down everything as I was going through.
And
Just,
I'd recommend it make it look like a web too, like the weird web of interconnecting words. That's the best way to do it, so you can kind of group who is working together.
Well, I
stuff
actually
like
do
that.
have a storage shed that just has a big.
Oh,
like,
great!
bulletin
I have a
board on it.
VHS tape that I really wanted you to see for a while.
Oh my god, I'd love to watch it.
Okay, great. I'll send it to
Okay.
you.
part of what I really liked about the game, to get back to like the notepad, is like it forces you to pay attention in a way most games don't.
Right.
And I feel like we're in this kind of culture of just like, this ADHD culture where like we have all these things vying for our attention. You go to play a game. Oh, I'm going to pick up my phone and check this right now.
Right.
I think what was cool.
Check it for the ending of her story. and
Well,
just
I
watch
think
it.
it was cool
I'm
is
just
that
kidding.
I actually was like, I went completely silent in the room, like just had my pen and paper out,
Yeah.
and there's nobody was distracting me from the game. And I haven't really focused in on a game like that in so long.
It really
something-
grab you.
I think what something's something that's helpful for it is that it's not asking for your attention for too much. It's got this good balance of like, okay, watch this for 20 seconds to a minute. You know it's going to be over before you even want it to be because you're getting information. It usually seems like right before you're about to get something good, it drops you out of there, and now I have to like write down some stuff, like furiously jot down notes like an investigator would, and then just get back in there and try to remember the loose threads that you're leaving. I have 2 questions.
Please.
One,
Could you just phrase them with one word, and then we'll see which one relates
Okay,
better,
all
and
right.
then we'll pick it up.
duration.
I have some thoughts about the duration. So I played it for like 2 hours. And by the end of that, I was like, I think I have I could sketch out what's going on here. I'm feeling pretty confident. Then, because the whole thing is through like a Windows 95 looking interface, and there's a way to see how much you've seen on that. And once I found that, then I realized, I've seen only like 50%. After I thought like I had drained a lot. So there's probably a lot more to the story than I realized. And it's one of those things where it's like, I thought I knew what was going on, but
You got more to crack.
you can keep diving into this well, and it's a really satisfying feeling.
I actually unlocked all of the.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I made sure I got everything because I didn't want to miss anything. I would say at 2 hours where you're at, you kind of have a good indication.
Yeah.
And could like be okay stopping there. I would say more like it's probably going to run you 3 hours.
Okay.
In my review, I put 2 to 3, knowing that some people would be okay with what they had found and walked away from it. It does have an ending, which I wasn't
Yeah.
sure when I first played.
Is it like a specific thing you got to type in?
No,
or?
what happens is you'll get a message saying that, like, do you know what's going on, basically.
Oh, okay.
And that'll tell you that, as Sam puts it, 'cause I actually asked him, I was like, when does that pop up? Like, is there a trigger for it? He's like, once you have seen where I feel like you have enough to know what's going on.
Like key
you can-
videos
Yeah.
and-
He's like,
okay.
you can keep going, but if you want to, then he will have a little scene play at the end. And that's it.
really?
Yeah.
And then-
so you didn't get that far.
Is there,
did not,
is there a
no.
fail or a success? Is there a choice that has to be made? Or is
no
it just
choice.
either you've done it or
you end, but it does. The ending is a little bit ambiguous, and he liked, when I talked to him, this like feeling of those great movies that have like an A and B plot, and the A plot always gets solved, so you basically know what had happened.
Sure.
The B plot though leaves you with one last thing to keep you thinking, and once he does that, you sit there after that, the credits go on, and you're like, oh my gosh, wait a second now. And then
Okay.
you're like, but what I liked about the game was
Oh, man.
I kept thinking about it long after.
yeah.
Like I've been thinking about it for days after I finished, just like trying to piece together. I was like, maybe, and I thought about going back and playing again because I was like, did I really get? I have 2 theories of what happened. I will not say them right now, but it's just
Sure.
like those 2 theories have just been going back and forth in my head of like, which one of these is really right? I don't know if
Yeah.
anybody can say for sure. You have some closure, but there's enough to make you doubt even what you've found.
This game design is so awesome.
That's
It's
what
really
I'm saying.
cool.
For such a small like game, it is like. I remember playing it, and I was like to Joe within the first couple minutes. I was like, "Oh yeah, this is a good one." Like
Yeah.
I'm hooked already.
As far as a simulated workspace, it reminds me of Papers, Please in a way where it's
Yeah.
like, this is my job. I'm working with the tools I have for this
Right.
job, and it feels really authentic in that way.
Yeah, it's so amazing to me how liberating it feels, where it's like it is all up to me. And I heard an interview with the creator actually on like the Giant Bomb Presents podcast feed. There's like an over hour-long interview, and it's really, really fascinating. But in that, he was talking about, the creator was talking about whether or not he should gate the progress. Like some words are off limits until you make a certain way. Because he worried about being too overwhelming. If it was just, you could literally type in any word and jump to like the most important clue if you just happen to guess it
But you might
correctly.
not know it was the most important.
Exactly. But he said something really interesting where like once he had basically the game engine in place, which is pretty rudimentary, he then took real transcripts from like police interrogations and plugged it in and then just experimented with that to see how liberating it was and like whether or not he would get stuck. And he said that it played pretty similar to the game, and that like his example, this isn't for the game, but his example with the real life transcript was like he kept realizing that money and financial issues kept coming up again and again with this guy's testimony, just the way he would kind of phrase every story. Like clearly money was important to him, and then it turns out that he killed his parents for the life insurance money. So it's like the most reoccurring motifs end up being kind of the motivation for the murder, and just like those weird trends that'll go through somebody if they talk about their life enough.
Yeah.
It's bizarre, but really fascinating how well this game can be structured.
Yeah.
Just keep you plugging away, and then you will have those aha moments. Like and they cue music in when you hit like the good keywords where it's like, wait, there's one pretty early on where it's like, is this what's happening here?
Yeah.
And you type in it, and then like the piano music starts playing. And it's like, oh my God.
I haven't got one of those.
I
moments
love.
yet.
Oh man,
You haven't had one of those yet?
And that's why I said I love that even after I finish this game, I still think about it. I'm still. I still don't 100% know if what I think is right, and I like that. I like when a game sticks with you, even a movie or anything, long after you finished it. And I think that to me is always a good sign of a good experience.
I'm into it. Most important question: do you play with the sort of like faux SD like 90s computer monitor glare on, or do you want it to be nice and clean and turn that filter off?
Oh, I play with it on.
I toggled it on and off. There's one part where it's like, I really want to see some bit of detail in that video. So I actually turned it off so I could like squint harder and try to figure out like, what is that over there?
Do you think it helped you?
No, I don't think so.
So keep it on.
Did you
It's a
find
cool
the
technique.
Minesweeper?
Yeah, there's like a weird like computer game hidden.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I didn't
it's in
find
the
it in there.
recycle bin if you just click on
spoilers.
it.
Oh, of course.
Spoilers everywhere.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Minesweeper
that was
spoilers.
the first thing I did. I was like, "What's in the recycle bin?
Yeah.
I'm looking for stuff."
So that's her story. It's like $6 on Steam. It's also on mobile. I think
Yes,
maybe just
iOS.
iOS now. Okay, yeah, but like it really, I recently fell in love with the Jinx on HBO, the documentary series, and like if you are a fan of the Jinx or True Detective season 1 specifically, man, give this game a whirl. It's a really fun detective role-playing experience.
It is. It's super authentic too for the era. It feels like, man, were there ever murders or like were there ever crimes solved on technology this terrible, like really
Right.
limiting and stuff like that? It's an interesting role play, really.
Yeah, definitely. Dan Tack,
Yes,
you checked out the Portal mod
I
last
did
night.
on your suggestion.
There we go.
Absolutely.
So Portal Stories Mel is a mod that just came out for free on Steam if you own Portal 2, but I think everybody in the world owns Portal 2
you don't
at
know
this
Portal
point.
2. I don't know what you're doing on a
Every
PC.
Steam sale, it's like 11 cents for Portal 2.
Yeah.
But it is a really, really ambitious mod with like 22 test chambers, like an hour of new music, yada,
Wow.
yada, yada.
Lots of new assets. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. What do you think of it so far?
So here's how my experience went with it. This is a lot like Final Fantasy, actually.
Oh, boy.
So when it started, they do that. The intro is basically 15 minutes of what I thought was really hammy, horrible Cave Johnson dialogue.
It's somebody attempting to impersonate
It's supposed to be an homage, and it's just falls flat on its face, and it's just awful and annoying.
an amateur
boy.
voice actor trying to do J.K. Simmons is really
It's
hard.
like all couched within like the lemons, grenades, kind
It's
of
not-
humor.
it's not funny, but it's not that
It's not
memey.
funny, but it's trying to be. It's very,
Yeah.
very sticky in the whole
Okay.
Cave Johnson persona thing.
Right.
Did not like that.
Starts out in 1952, by the way. It's
Yes,
like the
it
early
does.
days of Aperture.
And it's really interesting. And that whole first section, chapter 1, did not like it. I was like, why am I even playing this? Chapter 2 gets into actual gameplay. Much
actual
more
test
exciting.
chambers.
Much more exciting stuff. Like if you had a criticism that Portal 2 is too easy, this game is ready for you. Like these are challenging. It starts
Okay.
off pretty much where the difficulty capped in Portal 2, I think.
100%.
Yes.
Wait, are you talking like there was the one super vertical gel puzzle? Like there's some really rough
That's like
ones,
the first
where you're
puzzle.
There's a
trying
lot-
to work your way. Oh my god!
It brings back the gels pretty heavily, at least in the beginning areas. Like
Right.
I was doing okay, kind of making my way. Like it's basically the 70s section of Portal 2, 70s theme section, I guess, where it's kind of that open environment. You're kind of navigating your way through this kind of dilapidated area. That's what kind of starts out with before you get to the test chambers. And even that, I was having a little bit of tough time with. And then once I got to the first test chamber, I was like, are you kidding me?
in a fun way.
It's
I hate puzzles, so I was not having fun. But then I looked at the solution video, which they post on their YouTube channel. I was like, I was expected to figure this out. Like, holy Lord, is it complex?
yeah, actually, if you were, like I said, if you were one of the people whose criticisms of Portal 2 is that it was
Hell
not
no.
challenging
It was
enough.
a really challenging game. I thought. There was a few in there that I really had to scratch my head.
Oh,
for.
yeah.
There are a couple.
I'm also thinking of the co-op stuff.
Sure,
like
that's- which
that
is
was
good,
co-op
yeah.
stuff is
Yeah.
way harder, and I actually
Yes.
didn't finish the co-op stuff
Yeah, me neither.
because my friendship ended.
So this is this is much more difficult than any Portal 2 puzzle that I can recall. Like
Oh,
just
yeah.
very early on too. Like it starts off where the difficulty ended. Like it's
Masterclass of Portal 2.
it's really great actually. It was very refreshing. It's just like, wow, this is the first puzzle. This thing is crazy. I can't believe that. And it's just like, and then you get to the, like you said, you go further than that. It's just like, wow, okay, these are amazingly, you've got to like do this, and this in the correct order. Swap portals, like there's all kinds of stuff going on. It's
And
crazy.
also, it's that weird feeling, too, with an unofficial mod like this, which, of course, Valve has basically embraced as official, which is nice. But with an unofficial mod like this, you never know how much you can trust the designers. Where I feel like if it's from somebody like Valve, they focus tested the bejesus out of this thing, and that they're gonna play nice. But it's with some random modders. Like, I don't know if this is broken. I don't know how tough this is. I have no benchmark for what I'm dealing with.
It reminds me
here.
when Capcom got behind like Street Fighter Cross Mega Man.
Yeah.
And you're just kind of like, played Mega Man 9 and 10. I know what they're capable of. Then it's just like there's double E-tanks just like floating in the walls. You're like, well, okay. It's really good up to that point. But,
Yeah, I don't want to ever say a game is like overly difficult, but it is definitely like a surprising challenge if you were just expecting Portal 2 level of difficulty. But I think outside of the Cave Johnson beginning, I think it's really good. Like this is if you like Portal 2, I'm on like chapter 3.
Okay.
I'd say the story is fine so far. I expect it probably gets. Obviously, there are 2 more chapters, so I couldn't really crack out on more than that in a single night. But I would say if you like Portal 2 or Portal, this is it's free, so this is a no-brainer to try it.
What are the odds that this is the future of Portal? It's just fan mods like this, and then Valve just sits back.
Look at Valve. I mean, what do you want me to say here? Clearly, their focus is not. They're making great games and great community tools. So yeah,
it's a bummer to think about. It's so weird with this game, with such a lore heavy intro where it's like, oh, here's Cave Johnson in the 50s. Never really seen it before, and it's like, I can't take this seriously because it's fan made. Also, it's not very funny, and the VO's driving me nuts. But it's such a tease for like, I just want the official Valve stamp on some of this content so I can fully absorb it.
Right.
I know what they were going for in that beginning segment.
Yeah, you're always gonna keep yourself
It was rough.
a little bit of an arm's length with stuff like this. I know what you're saying.
But they have like new personality spheres, stuff like that.
They do.
Cool.
And so it's really, really ambitious. They worked on it for 4 years apparently.
You can tell, like, it is very, very well designed. With, like I said, lots of unique stuff. Like, again, once I got past that beginning area, and if you're looking for a challenge.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I mean, it is a puzzle game, so you can always look up the solution if you just want to play through it. I mean,
Right.
That's a thing you can do.
Definitely. Kim, you played the first episode of Tales from the Borderlands a little while ago.
Catch up, yeah.
You're 2 behind. The third one just came out this week. I'm fully caught up now. What did you think of the first episode?
I wasn't a big fan of the first episode.
Yeah.
I know for me, from all the Telltale games I played, I thought it was one of their weakest introductions, like their first episode. Usually I'm a little pulled in and I wasn't as intrigued as I usually am with their subject matter. So
I know Jeff reviewed it and he really, really didn't like that first episode. I was lukewarm on the first. I think this series is getting better and better. Second was on really sturdy ground. Third episode I also really liked a lot. It seemed a little bit shorter than the other two.
Yeah, I plan to catch up because I hate to judge with Telltale, as you know, with one episode you don't really know where they're going, what's going to go next. But I didn't find myself walking away hooked in the way that I had with like The Walking Dead. Even The Wolf Among Us, I thought that opener was done really well because it just had me like, okay, what the heck are they going to do here now?
They had a good cliffhanger in the first episode.
Yeah, that was great.
Of Wolf Among Us. But with Tales from the Borderlands, it's so strange. There's a couple weird elements of this game that I keep thinking about where they add like a currency so you can like unlock skins and occasionally buy stuff throughout the game. But it's so weird to have like a currency system with a game where you control your character like 3 times throughout an episode. It's like, how many places can they hide this money in?
So you're searching for it. It's not through dialogue that you get more. Or anything
right,
like that. Okay.
right. Yeah, it just seems like one of those pointless systems which in theory adds a little bit of depth, or like you can customize a robot at a certain point, like which do you want it to be, defensive or offensive? It's like I don't think it really matters ultimately. And that ties into the overall tone for the thing, which is it's the most comedic take on a game that I think Telltale's had certainly in a while. Probably the wackiest universe they've dealt with.
Strong Bad is pretty damn wacky.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. Yeah.
But it's been a while.
Right.
It's
Is it
certainly
the
been a
new
while.
guard of Telltale, their new direction?
The
How do
post-Walking
you
Dead
think they
stuff.
do with that?
I think it's funny. First episode, a lot of the pacing felt really off to me and not that great. I think second and third episodes are genuinely funny.
Okay.
Every once in a while, it's a little bit too obnoxious, but it's
in
not
the way that Borderlands can be?
occasionally.
Or-
Yeah.
Okay.
And not,
'Cause
it's not
I'm not a huge Borderlands
writing fan.
writing fan. I like parts. I like parts of it for sure. I like the catcher Scooter. Is it Scooter?
Yeah.
I like Scooter probably more than any human being should.
Seems like you should play Tales from the Borderlands. A certain character might come back.
What?
Whoa.
Yeah, rip off. I have a Scooter shirt on. But anyway, I just want to know like how, if it's a little subtler than that, since they have
It's not as internet-y.
That's
if that
okay.
makes
That's
sense.
fine.
Yeah, it's more just personality-driven kind of quirkiness. But yeah, I think the weird thing too is with a comedic game, it seems like Telltale post-Walking Dead, they've really embraced the idea of consequences and choices clearly. But trying to make like these big decisions in a comedic universe, it's tough to lend weight to that.
Sure, I could see that.
Like I was thinking about it last night. Basically, you're like choosing which characters live and die in a comedy. And it's like, well, how much do you really care about characters in a comedy ultimately? It's like, did you
Bugs
care?
Bunny has to choose whether to drop an anvil on Yosemite Sam or Elmer Fudd.
Yeah, the analogy I thought of is like, what if you chose in the Happy Gilmore game to let Chubbs die? It's like, do you really care that much?
No, of course you don't let Chubbs die.
Exactly. So it's an odd
Reese
take.
get any better?
Yeah, he's all
driving
right.
me nuts in the first episode.
It's
Just
Mr.
like-
Troy Baker.
Yeah, not because it's Mr. Troy Baker, but because the character is just really annoying to me.
Yeah, he's not that bad. I think he has some funny stuff. Yeah, there are some recurring characters from Borderlands. It's a lot of fan service, which I don't really care too much about, but it is interesting to think if in the future, like Borderlands 3 that they're supposedly working on now, if they're going to incorporate some of these characters, because they're kind of building up the storyline of like, are these people going to be Vault Hunters? Are they being trained to be Vault Hunters?
Okay.
So it would be really cool if in Borderlands 3 then they incorporate these characters back into
I
it.
just feel so behind on Telltale stuff between... I made it like 2 or 3 episodes into Wolf Among Us, mean to finish that up. I played the first episode of season 2 of Walking Dead, loved the first season. I don't know what's going on there. I also recently played the first episode of Game of Thrones and part of the second episode. And I'm like interested enough in all these other stories, but for some reason I just don't go back to them as regularly as I would another game, you know? Even if the entire season's out.
Right. And it seems like, I mean, just following Twitter and kind of the critics out there and whatnot, it seems like there's not still that much attention. So like when a new Borderlands game comes out, I see maybe 2 tweets about like, this one's pretty good. All right, see ya.
Is it the lack of a bit of a gameplay hook, like at all in there, and the fact that it's just this story and these choices, and after 2.5, 3 hours, you're exhausted of one, and
I'm wondering.
and there's no gameplay hook, just to kind of like kind of spread everything out, you know?
I'm wondering if it's just like too much, too soon, you know?
Yeah.
Like I even for me covering like Walking Dead, then doing Wolf Among Us, even at one point, like I was like, I gotta just take a step back. Like that's why I was with Tales from the Borderlands. I mean, that's why I'm not going through it fast. Same with Game of Thrones. Like I'm just like. You're right, because there's not much that's different except for the storyline, which you play those games for the story, but then at some point it's just, you know.
There's a formula burnout, I feel like.
That's what it's what it is. And it's, I like wish they would space things out better. I wish it would be that there wasn't as much time between episodes and focus on one at a time. And that would make it easier, I feel, to follow all that they do. But because they have, 2 running at once now, and the episodes can, like, the time between always changes. Like sometimes they do, a month. Sometimes it's a little longer than a month. You forget almost. Too.
Yeah, the only consistent thing with the release schedule is that I have forgotten so much by the time the next episode comes out. Like this time around, it's like there's a new big bad in episode 3, and it's like, I don't remember if they've hinted at this person at all. I don't know who this
that's
is.
what actually I liked playing on the cliffhangers because it made me like talk a lot about what's going to happen next, like when Walking Dead first came out. And then with how their schedule has been going with everything else, I find that by the time I get to the next episode, when I was reviewing, I was like, would have to go back to the first one and replace it to refresh my memory because of the fact that I'm like, and that's what bothered me with Wolf Among Us, because they wanted you to investigate and pay so close attention to it. But it's like with the way the release schedule is coming out on that, like you were never going to piece together things that happened in episode 1 and connect them to episode 5 if you're just playing when they released and not going back to everything else. So
yeah, it's a tough deal.
It's a tricky thing where they're not good for marathon sessions and they don't come out closely enough. Like they just haven't mastered that pace for whatever reason, for us anyway.
Did you guys watch the Minecraft trailer for the Minecraft story mode they're making?
I haven't yet.
Dan?
I
haven't.
I have not seen that, no.
All right, let me tell you guys all about it.
Here we go.
I was really hoping for this to be the game where they kind of shook up their formula, or at least focus on maybe like a smaller story, something like that. But it looks just to be an epic adventure with the chosen heroes in the Minecraft universe, and like it's voiced. They have like Patton Oswalt and like Paul Rubens in there.
Oh,
so
interesting.
Interesting voice talent, and I think it looks like a slightly more complex, better lit Minecraft, which is an interesting look. Certainly more flexibility in the animation and everything. But at least the story premise that the trailer sets up, it was a little bit disappointing that it was so conventional, save the Minecraft world. I don't know. I don't know what I was hoping
this
for.
is this is for, I think, like, is it more for kids than any other one?
I think it's going to sell like gangbusters. with
It's going to
kids.
sell well for them. I remember when it first came out and we had a conversation on the podcast about it. I was the one who was down on it because I was just like, I just don't know how, with what Telltale does, how they're going to make this interesting. I know that they've done like story spin-offs with the Minecraft universe, you know, that Cork brought down his little books and stuff.
Yeah, we get sent these novels to the office, and I know my nieces and nephews and stuff, they get into them. They like them. I've like those kids, like, we'll be talking about like someone named like Hero Brine, and like there's this whole legend behind him. You can just go down these rabbit holes on YouTube and find out all these secrets and little hidden nooks and like myths in the Minecraft universe. So the whole universe for kids seems to be gripping and full of potential enough that I could imagine them maybe getting into this, but at the same time, as long as the iOS one maybe. But
interesting.
But otherwise, I think that kids are just going to want to watch videos about Minecraft and play Minecraft.
Definitely.
So I'm curious to see how it shakes out.
Dan, if you had to write a story about Minecraft, what would it be about?
I played a ton of Minecraft in my day, to be honest.
Okay.
I think it's a really great game to play with friends, with like, especially with the mods that are out there on PC.
We're not promoting Minecraft. I'm asking you what story you would write within the Minecraft universe.
You
to
can
make
do
it
anything,
compelling.
because you can do anything in Minecraft.
What would yours be about?
It would probably, I don't know, like some crazy evil nether guy.
Okay.
Like,
Always got to be
I think
evil.
that's the exact plot of the Telltale
I'm
game,
sure it
actually.
is.
So
It'd be really easy to write, right? So
there we go. Done and done. We should probably move on, everybody.
Yeah, let's answer some emails.
Yeah, we got a bunch of reader emails that we're going to get to, so stay tuned for that segment, and then we'll close the show out, and then we'll get to some hot Batman spoilers.
Oh, yeah.
Batman.
All right, stick around for emails.
All right, welcome back to the Game Informer show. For this section, we're bringing back reader and listener emails.
Bringing it back, baby.
Bringing it back. So if you want us to answer a question or just generate a topic for us to kind of talk about, you should send those emails to podcast@gameinformer.com.
Also, feedback on the show, thoughts, dumb things like
What you're wearing,
anything you want.
what's on your mind.
How deep is that hole you fell into, as Kato is quick to point out?
Emotionally.
That's right.
Yeah. So let's kick things off. First one is from Mark A. From Phoenix, Arizona. So Mark writes, I picked up Arkham Knight at my local GameStop, and I'm loving it. I think a cool idea and nod to the fans would be to hear Adam West's voice instead of Kevin Conroy's when wearing the classic TV series Batman skin. Even after a fight, have him do a little Bat-Tusi dance. Silly, I know, but I feel if there was a creative DLC like this in more games, I think us customers would be getting more bang for our buck. So my question is, what are some other DLCs, past, future, present, that you'd like to see have these little extra features, like a song or a different voice or any other creative idea developers can do to make their DLC worth the money? Thanks, guys. Keep up the good work. Mark,
I agree that Rocksteady doesn't do enough Batman fan service in those Batman Arkham games. It's crazy that they have like the animated, Batman animated series skin in there. That they even include the Adam West skin is amazing.
yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah, but maybe there's some sort of filter they can put on what's his name? What's the Batman voice guy's names?
Kevin Conroy?
Kevin Conroy's voice. Just if you just slow it down a little bit, maybe it'll sound
Yeah.
like Adam West.
That could be cool.
Yeah.
Well-
So Dream DLC.
Yeah, something that this email made me think of is when Evolve was kind of still on the horizon, and we were just talking about like dream ideas where it's like, well, one level could be set in Tokyo, and let's have Godzilla come out, or let's have one be set in like 1950s like New York or something, and you're fighting like in King Kong or
Or the best one, Antarctic base. And the alien can just impersonate somebody on the team.
So it's
you have
the
to figure-
thing,
it's the
basically.
thing. Yeah, you got to figure out which one's the real alien.
that'd be fantastic. So
that
that
was
was
like the worst thing ever. for
Really?
the game. Yeah.
Oh, that'd be amazing.
I mean, it's a cool game concept, but it would be terrible for Evolve.
You could
right?
shoehorn it into Evolve.
Let's hear one of your fun ideas. Take the
Sure.
energy of deconstructing
Sure.
Ben's dreams into building up one of your own.
Sure. So, like, I think actually, specifically on the PC side, we've actually seen a lot of this just because of the nature of the games there, which are, a lot of free stuff. The game is free, but then it's all about skins and customization there on the money side. So, like, Smite has like a Solid Snake themed skin. Like, they've been doing like
What?
Yeah.
Like officially licensed?
No.
What is it?
Inspired by? Let's put it that
What
way.
god is it on?
It's on not Artemis. Apollo.
Huh.
So your dream is alive already?
I'm saying, yeah. If you look at the PC scene, we get crazy skins with crazy voice packs, crazy.
So you're saying all imagination has been tapped and generated and funneled into the PC.
I'm saying
mod
for
scene.
me, this is like two different questions. Like this is like, what's the good DLC for my money, and then what's like the best implementation of these like really customized fan servicey skins and voice packs.
I think the question is essentially like, what weird DLC thing that would probably never happen that would make you so happy for that specific game?
See, that's a different question than I thought was.
I'm going to go really off the rails here. Here we go. Because DLC was not really around when Final Fantasy X-2 came out.
Oh,
now,
boy.
what if you could take it and have it be a boys' night out and swap the cast to like Tidus, Kamari.
Oh God.
Waka, Aron, yeah. Like, what if you could do that
Sin.
and just have them do the dance number from the beginning or whatever, or just make it like a guys. I mean, we're getting kind of a guys' night out in Final Fantasy 15, but
Right.
I think it would be cool to be able to switch perspectives and get silly with it. Like that whole game was just so silly that it would fit.
I
Very
like
well.
the idea of like, it's, that game is like the girls' big adventure, but like the DLC, we're just gonna go ahead and bring it back to boys. We heard your complaints. You don't want to play as women.
Hey,
All right.
equal opportunity, okay?
You
The
want them to be all
girls get their-
sexified too? Is that the goal?
Well,
Can we make it some of like cooler characters from Final Fantasy instead of those losers?
Who's your dream team? Who's the sexiest
Like we
Final Fantasy
bring,
dream
we
team?
bring back the old school teams. Like we need Cecil in there. Anyone from 4
Cecil
or 6.
and Sid from Final Fantasy IV with his beard.
Yeah, sure. I mean,
just
old school
make
Sid.
like Final Fantasy dance parties with different characters.
Bugenhagen flying around from Cosmo Canyon.
That sounds great.
Let's do it.
Well, what a good selection of. Do you have one, Ben?
I think so. I feel like, I don't know if I've brought it up before on this podcast, but I really want, it's always such a bummer in Assassin's Creed that they spend so much time building out these amazing worlds and like complete replicas of the city. Then it's like, all right, moving on. It's like, oh, they built out a pretty interesting looking colonial America. And I feel like it's just sitting there in the wastelands on some hard drive at Ubisoft. I want like them to constantly remix what they're doing in those worlds. Basically take like a Blood Dragon type approach and just come up with new, interesting gameplay, little self-contained stories, little adventure games, just much more stripped down than Assassin's Creed, but using those environments. Even like take Assassin's Creed 3's environment, just make some comedy starring the Founding Fathers. Just something wacky with those environments.
They tried to do the Tyranny of King George, which was a kind of a safe bet on a historic twist or whatever. But I think Blood Dragon has set new standards for what's possible with like take everything you did and just go wild with
But
it.
not many people have really followed its footsteps, I wish
not
more
really, not
like
even
that
Far
just
Cry.
worked out so well. I don't know if they're ever going to hit it out of the park again like that. So everyone's like, let's not even try.
Yeah, I hope we can see some more of that. But
I guess kind of like the Goat Simulator DLC is kind of trying to.
it was such a departure from the serious tone of
Right.
the original Goat Simulator.
Oh gosh, the tears that I shed.
Yeah. So, all right, next one up is from Jake from Birmingham, Alabama. Hey, guys, what was the very first Game Informer issue you read? In 1994, I was playing games at a friend's house when I noticed some rad cover art of the Mortal Kombat symbol with a lightning bolt behind it. At the bottom right, I also spotted the logo for Sonic and Knuckles. Instantly, I was sold and had to see what was inside.
Oh, that's why you picked this
After
question.
borrowing that issue from my friend and reading it cover to cover, I begged my parents to get me a subscription. I've been a reader ever since, and I still get giddy every time I see a new issue arrive in the mail. Thanks for reading, and thanks for
I
the
like
awesome
that.
show. Cheers, Jake.
Thanks, Jake.
I also
That's super cool.
Kim, you're right. I did notice that. I'm like, holy hell. I think that was my first issue.
Yours?
Yeah, the one that Jake mentioned here. I'm like, I think that I saw that Sonic and Knuckles logo, and I was like, well, I didn't know there was a new Sonic game coming. Are you telling me that there's a way for me to get this information ahead of time?
Were you talking to the closed magazine?
Yeah, that was just me speaking to the magazine, to the Mortal Kombat.
And then your mom
logo.
grabbed your hand and opened the magazine for you?
It's like this sometimes. Please don't mind. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I guess for me, it's weird to pinpoint when my first issue was. I just grew up with it around the house all the time because I had 2 older brothers, and I can't say which was my first. I know I always liked reading the magazine, but I wish I remembered. Now I kind of feel like I'm a bummer.
I missed out completely on game magazines. I don't know what the hell was wrong with me. I just was never exposed to them. I
That
remember we'd go.
surprises me coming from you.
I know. I would just look at like Lego magazines over and over again. Look at that hot Lego City
Oh my
stuff.
gosh! Like, look at all these sets I never see in the store, so I don't know how to order because I don't have a credit card.
That's exactly it. But like, we'd go on road trips and I'd see them every once in a while in like a gas station, especially like PlayStation era or be like, oh my God, there's like a demo disc bundled with it. I need that. And then it's never ended up getting one. So it was like my friend, I guess in college, I started noticing Game Informers lying around his place. So that's the first one I really
Did you know
remember.
that it was here?
I must have. I think I did from a podcast that Andy was on. He was on an old One Up podcast, and I think it got brought up there. But outside of that, yeah, Game Informer was a pretty new addition to my life. I remember the Epic Mickey redesign cover. I lost my mind over. Not to the point of subscribing, but I was damn close, real close with that one.
How about you, Dan?
Man. You know, I'm sure I read one a long time ago, but the only one I can think of in recent memory was actually just before I started working here.
Okay,
So,
fair enough.
He never read the magazine.
I got to say, a lot of my purchases and game kind of stuff is digital, so I never
Sure.
really was in a brick and mortar place where I'd pick up a print mag.
Do you want to just pour a can of gaslene over this office, Dan, and just light it on fire? Or?
Not particularly. I kind of like it.
Okay, great.
Kind of needs a job.
All right, so that was great. Thanks, Jake. So this next one is from Dan from Oregon. Hi, podcast crew. I've been listening for 2 years now, and I love the show. When I was 14, I switched to a new high school. Everyone else in my class has switched at the same time. The first day, they sorted us all into our classes and gave us the morning to get to know each other. After a long, awkward silence, one of the students asked, so has anyone played Metal Gear? The entire class of 24 students then broke into discussion, and we all have remained good friends even after 10 years.
24?
That's what I'm reading here. Have you ever had a similar experience where gaming has helped cross awkward social boundaries and made lasting friendships? Thanks. Keep up the good work, Dan.
I'm trying to think. It's an interesting question. Like I think of like.
That one really speaks to me, actually.
Oh, really? Go ahead.
I had
man.
almost the exact same situation. I think it was 5th grade, where I was changing schools in a new place, and I didn't know anybody there. And I turned around just to like see who was sitting behind me, and he was actually doodling, believe it or not, Final Fantasy 1 at the time. I think it was, and he has like an airship and like the castle, and I was just like, hey, I know what game that is, and that sort of led to quite a few friendships.
That's what
back then.
happened?
Yeah, that was really cool, actually.
That's great.
I think of like at the old TV station I used to work at, we had like our holiday party. You know, party always kind of dreads work holiday parties. But this one in particular, they had Beatles Rock Band set up. It wasn't too long ago. And it was like, oh, it was just the best drunken bonding time with coworkers I normally don't really spend too much time with, like the IT department and stuff like that. But I'm trying to think, like back in the day, like my best friend Ronnie, we became friends because he borrowed me the first disc of
Loaned you. You're in Minnesota.
it's a Minnesotan thing. I'm still going to say it because
Okay.
I'm sorry
He
it's
loaned
drilled
it to
into my.
you.
He borrowed me the first disc of Final Fantasy VII.
Shut it down. Edit that out.
No, and then he would not give me the second and third disc because he's like, I don't really want to let it on my site. And so it was me constantly begging him for the second and third disc of Final Fantasy VII.
What?
He wouldn't give it to me.
He's a sadist.
So then
pretty criminal.
the only way to do it is I had to go to like a communal friend's house and then we beat the second and third disc in one night.
Oh, nice.
That was the whole thing.
I'm gonna have to give him a hard time about that.
Please
next time
do.
I hear about that.
Yeah, he was a 6th grade monster.
That's my favorite Goosebumps novel. So my examples are just like, I don't know, I would doodle like Sonic in like elementary school, and like I didn't draw much in my life. I wasn't an amazing artist, but I could draw Sonic characters really well. So it was recognizable, and then I made a bunch of friends just by trying to pretend to be Sonic characters. And then we'd be like, all right, well, there's Sonic, there's Tails, and there's Knuckles, and like, who are the other good guys? And then it's like we had to start making up our own, so we got really imaginative that way. Other than that, I think it still helps me. I mean, I'm in plenty of awkward situations where it's just like introduced to like a friend of a friend, and then they're all just like guys, and they all just want to talk about sports and stuff, and just like it's kind of like, okay. And then one of them starts talking about games, and then maybe they'll ask like, you know anything about games, or do you play Call of Duty or anything like that? I'm like, well, actually, and I can tell them about the like my career and like what I do, and it helps smooth that out.
And then they can all go,
They're just like, I'm out of guacamole.
we should be talking about carpentry again.
Yeah. Oh, why did I bring all these hammers? If we were going to talk about these hammers I brought. Anyway, that's my little bit there.
Kim?
So
For me, I guess like I just grew up with games, and I never really had to talk about them at school for some reason. But then I remember in like, what was it, 6th or 7th grade, I had a bunch of friends over for a sleepover, and I introduced them to Earthbound, and then it just became this thing where everybody just come to my house every couple weeks to play Earthbound, and we all played
The most
the
renowned
RPGs.
party game in the world.
I know, like they were just
Nonstop
we
laugh
thought it
riot.
was just so funny and
Yeah.
hilarious, and we loved it.
That's
and
awesome.
I mean, that was the first time too, as like a group of girls that like I just have never talked about gaming. Not that like I was embarrassed or anything, it just never really came up. And
Yeah.
then to like show people this game that I thought was really cool and have all of them just be like so obsessed with it that we had to like plan sleepovers
You
to
know what
play
I bet
it.
the secret was? I bet that you guys named like the different things at the beginning after the girls that went there, right? So it's like, oh, the dog is named after Alicia. Ha, ha, ha.
No, I don't think so. I think I
Exactly.
was such
It definitely
The
happened.
canonical names.
No,
Ben.
I think I was so hardcore with Earthbound. Is like everybody had to have their real names. Like,
Oh, that is the biggest bummer I've ever heard of.
God.
I would have left that sleepover.
I'm the same way, Kim. Take a hike, Ben. Thanks for that question, Dan. All right, so Heath from Burbank, California. Is there ever any internal dissent when someone is publishing a review at Game Informer? Since the game gets assigned, has there ever been a time when other editors in the office felt the score was incorrect or unjustified? And if so, how does something like that even get resolved? Love the new podcast and really appreciate having the option to watch you on YouTube as well.
Oh, that's
Thanks, Heath. So basically what I want to say is that like before we dive into this is that like your score is always your score. Like that doesn't get thrown back at you and like massaged or anything like that. It's like how you felt about the game. But once that's published, just like anyone on the internet, people in the office are happy to tell you when they disagree with your score.
Well, we're all
Right.
not the same, right? We all have different opinions. I think any game, it's rare that we all are in full agreement on. Like we'll say, oh, we all like it, but we all like things for different reasons. And I mean, we're individuals. We're not just
right. And some
we
of
don't
us,
just follow the path. I think what's interesting about that is, like I said, it's your score, it's your opinion at the end of the day, but are you supporting that opinion well? And that's the only time we ever have discussions is like, oh, I don't understand really what you're trying to say here. It's not coming through to me. And that's about,
This reads like a 6.75, not a 7.5. That kind of those little quibbles come up all the time.
making sure that it's your tone of your article is consistent with what you gave it and stuff like that. I think for me, a couple examples come to mind. Like I still get like crap to this very day for my Dead Space 3 review, which is still one of my favorite games of last.
You should hear the crap people give you
generation.
behind your back too about it.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
I believe it.
Yeah.
I can only imagine. But yeah, and that's like one I still stand by. And there's other reviews I have. I gave Dead Space 3 a 9.75 and was just flabbergasted when everybody else started playing the game and talking about it. I'm just like, well, whatever. I'm sorry you guys didn't like it as much as me, because I love that game. And then like Resident Evil 6. I gave it an 8.75 because I had a lot of fun with that game too. And people would talk about certain bugs they have, like, hey, I had this weird stealth glitch with this scene with the Ustanok, and like, well, I never had that problem. I can't speak to that.
That is the most like frustrating thing going through the review process is if we don't have the bugs, we can't write about them. I
Right.
had that happen to me. Like the Witcher 3 build that I got was really clean. Like I think I crashed twice in my whole time playing it, and I didn't have any weird things going on, but people who are playing on other platforms, obviously, and I've heard like, oh, I had this happen. Did you have that? And I'm like, no, I didn't. But if I would have, if anything was an issue, we would have said it.
So, I mean,
That is such a weird thing these days with, especially open world games getting so complex. It's just rolling the dice for reviewers about whether or not you're just going to have a really glitchy experience. We can really impact your feelings about the game.
Yeah.
and if
so
it's
tough.
if it's something that has like an online component, we wait until the public servers are online before
Right.
we sound off on that. But I don't know, Kim. I know that I think even on this podcast, someone brought up the old Nino Kuni.
It's never
debate
come
and
up.
Stuff.
It's
And
never come up.
You're familiar with that sort of
Ian.
Dan, I don't even know. Have people come up to you and been like,
Dark Souls.
There has been one extremely divisive review that I've done that I can remember, and that was Bound by Flame.
okay,
Oh, that was
Since I
divisive.
scored that higher than a lot of other outlets.
I like that.
I thought it was I stand by the score.
Well, hell
I didn't
yeah.
think it was that bad.
You're Dan Tack.
And now, I mean, you can't go a day without people bringing up Bound by Flame.
No, usually that is the first jab they throw at me. If
really?
if I score something and it's just like, can't take this review seriously, gave Bound by Flame an 8. What can I do?
I always find it interesting too. When people come up to you in person and they bring it up to you, and you're always taken back because it's not like that. I don't realize that that's possible, but it's like, oh, okay. I'm glad you really liked that game. Like, I wanted to. Like, I want everybody to like what they
Would you
play.
sound more meek though in your response? Would
No,
appreciate
Tim
it.
was next to me, I think, when that happened during.
It's all those situations blur together. I remember, well, one that stands out was at a PAX, would be, or soon to be, whatever, future intern Dmitry Gedevanishvili came up to me. He's like, "Oh my God, I'm a huge fan of Game Informer. Let me talk your ear off." He was like leaving the convention center and walked back. He's just like, "Tell me about Game Informer, and I want to be an intern and stuff." And but like after the first like introductions, he's like, "I want to talk to you about how wrong you are about Dead Space 3. That game is really bad. Explain to me your logic. Do you regret that? Do you lose sleep over it?" And so it's always jarring when people some people just like really want that sticks in their craw.
Yeah, and it's been like a conversation they've been going over in their head that they're gonna have with you for like all this time, and you're just like, wow. Like we go through we move so fast that's like, wow, I did that review like a year ago, and you remember that. It's always great that things stick with
At
people.
least it made an impact.
Yeah, it made an impact. It's not like you would do it for an impact, but it always kind of takes you back a little bit.
I just moved to a new place, and the other day my apartment buzzer rang, and I hit the listen button, and all it was just, "I want to talk to you about Sonic Generations.
Yeah.
Do you have just 1 minute, please?"
And then you looked outside and it was one of your made-up Sonic characters from when you were a kid.
Yeah, Drog the Droganian was just standing outside my front
believe
door,
that.
but he had a nice bottle of wine, so I let him in.
Oh, hey.
Yeah. All right, so that was a great one. Thank you for that, Heath. Next up is Drew from Massachusetts. Hello, everybody. With Telltale having rights to so many licenses right now, what would be your dream Telltale license? I personally would love to see a Twilight Zone game. Wink, Hanson might be able to attest. Thanks, Drew. I figured, since we spent so much time talking about Telltale, and
It's about time we talk about Telltale on this
but
podcast.
this is a fun conversation to have
is.
because
Right.
you can come up with the license idea, the crossover that it's just like I would not get exhausted of this. My go-to is Mad Men, like especially now that it's done and there's no more of that. Like just the idea of navigating, like going your way from
a
like
good one.
a secretary to like a creative director or something like that.
But would you want it to be with the Mad Men characters, like a prequel or something?
I would absolutely want it to be around the time from like Cooper Draper Price or whatever, like the very beginnings of it, season 1, and since it's all done, go all the way through and try to plot, like navigate your course with that, and run into Don Draper and piss him off, and say like Don will remember that.
You want it to be like a Game of Thrones style where the other characters are kind of in there, but most of the time you're dealing with like the smaller characters.
I would really like that.
Okay,
Yeah.
that'd be interesting. He brought it up. Twilight Zone is still mine. I love the idea of, since they'd all be one-offs in
anthology.
theory, just having much more consequences built into that. You don't have to carry the characters over. It's like people can just drop like flies.
It's like something will always twist and go wrong, but how will it go wrong?
And it'd be so fun to see a black and white game from Telltale.
That would be so. It's a great.
It's a
choice.
simple pleasure, but I think that'd be an interesting twist.
I'm a pretty big Whedon fan, so I would probably want them to do a Buffy Angel thing. And the comics are still going, so
That seems
there's
right.
a lot of potential there. I like the dumb PlayStation 2 game that they had, like Chaos Bleeds or whatever.
Chaos Bleeds?
I think that's what it was called. I don't remember the exact name, but
Random
there's like
subtitle
2 of them
generator.
too, but there was one I like more than the other. But
Have you read the comics?
yeah.
Okay. I just heard about this on one of Kevin Smith's podcasts. Apparently there's a comic where the entire thing is just a sex scene with Buffy. Do you know about
What?
this?
I didn't know about
like,
that.
Super graphic, entire
hey.
comic book.
Oh, so that's what you probably want for
I just blew my mind that they did that. That seems insane.
There is a lot of spin-offs with the comics. You know what I think would be good? They have a good spin-off, totally ignoring that, with Angel and Faith. They have a comic book, and I think that would be a cool, just to focus on those 2 characters and their relationship for a good Telltale thing.
Cool. Yeah, I think there's a lot of people that would agree with you. Dan Tack.
So I'd say
Is it Minecraft? Did it already happen?
No. I guess
PC community's been
Souls.
adapting it for
funny answer would be Dark Souls, but
Yeah.
more Telltale-y, I think would be True Detective with the season 1.
I like it.
Season 1 specifically.
Season 1 specifically, I want to make that
But
very
how do you
clear.
retell that? Like,
You can go a lot of ways with that. I think it would be cool to more embrace the rather unusual aspects that they didn't really do.
the sex scenes?
No, not the
I wanna
sex scenes,
play
the supernatural stuff.
I want to play as the fabled Yellow King, please.
Yeah, I mean, bringing that kind of stuff in
Yeah.
would be neat, really neat.
Yeah, that's a great choice. I love it. I love it. What good questions this week. Really impressed with everybody. I'm not kidding or being...
You guys knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, all of you. Thank you so much.
We got time for one more?
One more, huh?
Do we?
Oh my gosh,
Yeah,
I got to
man.
scramble.
All right, we got one.
Oh, let me just real quick. I'm going to skip that actually. All right, this is a weird one.
Okay. This is going to be good.
But I like it. I'm gonna.
All right, here we go.
Basically, all right. Let me paraphrase. This is from Elfren from Phoenix. Efren from Phoenix. Sorry. So basically, Efren played Call of Duty 4 and fell in love with the Coriolis effect of like the end of it where you have to snipe someone very particularly and take wind into account, and it's very physics focused final shot you have to make. Very dramatic.
Right.
And became so obsessed with it and intrigued, like they started pursuing like education in physics and that side of science, like just based on like this super like, you know, like the rotation of the earth and all the science that goes into, you know, sniping someone from a long distance or whatever.
I take it not gun physics specifically.
No, it just seems like it's very general interest in physics.
Okay, good.
Not how to kill a man from half a planet
that's
Earth away. So anyway, the question is, have you encountered a moment in video games that urged you to explore something you may otherwise not have? Were you content with what you learned, or do you continue to absorb as much as you can from the newly found passion? And mentions that we're nailing the podcast thing. Thanks.
Cool. Getting back to carpentry. I'm going to go with Age of Mythology really piquing my interest in mythology.
Oh, okay.
I guess even before that game came out, like I read the Odyssey and stuff like that and really enjoyed learning about mythology. And then like, you know, Joseph Campbell, I remember watching those VHS tapes and whatnot as a kid. But yeah, Age of Mythology specifically then led to me getting into Norse mythology, and then ended up taking a class with Tim Turi at the U of M about Scandinavian mythology.
Tim Turi.
That's right.
That's right.
It was great. It was a great class. I ended up at that class for different means. It was because of like melodic Viking death metal,
Did you
which
guys
is
ever
why I
talk?
ended up there. What's that?
Did you guys ever talk?
No.
No, it was a weird day. We were in this class together. We both skipped class the same day to go to a Death Clock concert. And if we just would have locked eyes at one point while skipping class to go see Death
And
Clock.
playing that
that's
Guitar
funny.
Hero competition that was before it. That's
right. I do
Playing
remember
the
that.
Rage Against the Machine.
That's funny. I guess for me, this is way off course, but I guess a lot of like my enthusiasm for Japan and anime came from playing JRPGs.
That's
I mean,
true,
I
yeah.
would have never even thought to even watch an anime if I hadn't been exposed to all that.
Yeah, that's a great one.
Yeah, or just like kind of the natural interest in Japan that spikes in people
Yeah.
who grew up playing games. Just like, oh, I just know that's that genius place where Mario came from originally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you grow up always thinking like, if you play a lot of games, you probably want to go to Japan at some point.
Exactly, and a lot of the games that I play also have like Tokyo in there, and just to be able to be like, oh yeah, that place is really cool. I
Weird
want to see what that is.
approximations of Tokyo,
Yeah.
where like, you know, you'll be walking through a part of Tokyo and it feels like you know, the place from Final Fantasy VII where you're trying Waldrug or something. That's not Waldrug. That's in the Midwest.
No.
Can't remember what it's
Calm?
called.
Yeah.
Basically, when you're trying to get Link or Cloud to cross-dress, basically wherever that place is called. Anyway, I'm blanking on it. But there's sections of games that aren't even set in Tokyo that you just feel that like Tokyo flavor in it. And
Right.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, I just beat Splatoon single player this weekend, which kind of takes place in that. And people were really hyping up that final boss, including like Nintendo itself. And like, it's a cool design, but it goes on forever, and it was really tough. And I got really sick of it by the end.
Well,
But-
great, good endorsement for Splatoon single
Yes.
player. I'll continue to not play that and just play.
Yeah, you
multiplayer.
should. It's really fun. I still love that
It
game.
seems kind of repetitive.
Dan Tack.
I'm sure there's a lot of examples like from long ago, but I guess just recently one sticks out, and that was to go and sort of revisit some of Lovecraft's more esoteric work after playing through Bloodborne, because there's so many
interesting, yeah.
connections.
Yeah.
Like more explicit than I thought at first. Not just inspired by, but very, very strict connections, and it's really sweet to go back and like take a look at that, because you know I'd read some Lovecraft before, but it wasn't. I just read the the essential Lovecraft, but it was interesting to go revisit those based on a game.
How many pages of loading screens do they have in Lovecraft?
You can go as fast as you can read.
Is that
There's
right?
yeah, it's
I'll
pretty
be
cool.
damned.
I actually did the same thing recently with the Shadow over Innsmouth.
Yes.
Which is like probably the most directly connected Lovecraft work to Bloodborne,
Yep.
and it was really satisfying. But other than that, I'd say like generally I saw Castlevania at a really young age, and it made this connection where it's just kind of like, oh my gosh, like here's Frankenstein's monster, and here's Dracula, and here's a werewolf, and here's a mummy, and like I knew about them from Universal Monster Pictures, but like they were always kind of disparate. They're like they crossed over back then, but they weren't I don't know. It was just a weird way to weave all these monsters together. I'm like, I guess I never thought about like Medusa next to a mummy next to, a zombie. And what even is a zombie? And then then our school book fair came up. I opened up this book of monsters. I'm like, there's a zombie. And then I was terrified of zombies and became obsessed with them and saw Light of the Living Dead at the right age. I just think Castlevania was like this early spark of interest for like the origins of monsters for me. And it was such a rogues gallery of monsters that there was just so many little seeds to be planted there that eventually led me to read Dracula and Frankenstein for the first time and just continue loving to soak that stuff up. So
Do you think that fueled your love of horror then in general?
I think that seeing Halloween in 8th grade was like the real genesis of it. But I think that Castlevania planted like a really early like respect and understanding of what the classics are. Other than that, Medal of Honor got me into World War II. That was another one. But
Yeah, and I remember before the Metal Gear Solid trip, when you're researching and playing through all the Metal Gear Solids again, you were like, "Hey, have you guys ever looked up this thermonuclear war thing on Wikipedia?"
No, my thing was just like, have you really paused to consider how insane of murderers we were in World War II? Like, I mean, in a large scale. Have you really stood and appreciated the effect of the atom bomb? Like, if you spend more than like a few minutes and not with like your eyes glazed over in a history class, just really thinking about it, it was just one of those things where I'm like, this sucks. But anyway.
That really sums it up really well.
Okay, good.
The only move they say to win a global thermonuclear war is to not play. That's move.
Not play Metal Gear Solid.
And on that sage wisdom and advice, I think we'll probably close this section. I want to give a shout out to Dan from Oregon for asking that question about like games just bringing people together, smoothing over awkward questions. That's question of the week, or email of the week, and we'll follow up and get you a little special little something. And if you want a special little something from us to say thank you for writing in, if we choose you for question or email of the week. You'll get something cool, and you send your emails to podcast@GameInformer.com.
It's actually Tim's leftover lunches.
That's right.
He'll send any scraps left behind.
We do at least 3-day delivery, so they won't be that bad.
That's right. All right, but that's it for this week's Game Informer show, the proper version of the Game Informer show.
Right.
You can close out now if you don't want all of Batman Arkham Knight spoiled by Sir Andrew Reiner, Kyle Hilliard, Brian Vore, and Jeff Cork.
That's right.
They're all going to be talking about the ins and outs of that entire game.
Yeah, we haven't beaten it, so we're bowing out for this part.
That's right. So stay tuned if you want all that. Otherwise, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah, thanks.
Hey everyone, Andrew Reiner here. We are going to be discussing Batman Arkham Knight spoilers. If you're watching this, you haven't played the game yet, and you want to play it, avoid this at all costs. Just shut the program down, the video, and move on to something else. We're going to go into every little story beat, not just the ending, but there's a lot of big things going on in the game. And all three of these gentlemen here have finished it. We got Kyle Hilliard.
Yeah, I'm part of the 100% Riddler Trophy Club. I went all out, did all the trophies.
Jeff Cork's part of that club.
Yes, I am.
And Brian Vore had a little bit of trouble we watched upstairs just recently fighting Asriel. You're going to be 100%, but not there yet.
That was my lowest point. You guys all witnessed it.
Yeah, it was pretty fun.
Batman looked pretty cool all the other times, and you weren't even looking at it.
You were swinging at a lot of air when we were up there.
There was a lot of electricity that I had to deal with. Those challenges, for the people who haven't tried them yet, you cannot get hit at all.
Yeah.
You need to beat up a group of guys. And electricity, is not my friend. But I did beat the next one like on my second try.
Yeah, it's weird.
The very final one.
Yeah.
It was no problem.
But lots and lots to talk about in this game. Obviously, the stuff that Rocksteady and Warner Brothers communicated prior to launch was a very small fraction of what the game was actually about. It turns out it is not just about Scarecrow and Arkham Knight, this new character they introduced, but it's another Joker story. Big time. Maybe more. You get more Mark Hamill voiced Joker, even after he said he was retiring.
Do you think that's disingenuous, or do you like that fake out occurred?
I think that's awesome.
I love that he said that, even if he was totally lying. Like he can lie to me. That's fine.
I mean, I had no idea this was going to happen, obviously. And the very first thing you do in the game is you cremate the Joker. which gives you a great sense of closure.
Wiggling
after
the thumbsticks.
Yeah, you actually have control over the flames, which is kind of disturbing and dark. But yeah, it was very cool to see that transition where it was like, okay, we're leaving the Joker behind. It felt like a kind of a send off, like we're moving on to something else here. And if you've played Arkham Asylum, one of the best parts of that was Scarecrow. So them setting up Scarecrow as the big bad was a very cool thing out of the gate. But then they kind of pulled the rug out from under us and had it be more about Joker tied to those hallucinations. What did you guys think of the Joker content in general?
I think it worked really well because normally you can only hear Joker over a speaker. If he's anywhere near you, there has to be some kind of force field or a piece of glass between you, because otherwise Batman just cannot help himself but punch him right in the face.
Right.
But now Batman has no control, so he just has to listen to whatever Joker has to say. And the way this manifests is the Joker knows everything about Batman, Bruce Wayne, and is almost like delighted, like, oh, I never knew this whole time, and like, oh, I can't. This is how you treat your Bat family and all that stuff. He's very keen observations that really kind of cut to Batman's core.
That's because it's Bruce Wayne internalizing the Joker. Obviously, it isn't the Joker. The Joker
situation.
Is an external force. I mean, the Joker is dead.
Joker's long gone. Yeah. And the Joker is in Batman's mind, and it's not just the Scarecrow's fear toxin that is delivering this. Batman's also infected with the Joker toxin, the laughing gas from Arkham Asylum or even City, like the exposure to that and how that was creating. I guess Joker's endgame was to create other Jokers, other characters that would kind of become him. And you see that there's, I think, what was it, 6 of them in the game?
Well, there's 3, and then Batman's the 4th.
3.
Right?
Okay, then there's 4.
The
and
woman,
Joker
the big
was
muscular
5.
guy, and then Johnny Charisma.
There's also that little old man.
Oh yes, that's right. So 4, and then Batman's 5th. Okay. Yeah.
Who is supposed to be. He was the good tainted Joker man, but really he was the most tainted of them all.
He really was.
Good tainted Joker, man.
But the Joker is in Batman's mind, and it's really cool to see the relationship that they have in the game. I really liked that, how the Joker would just taunt him endlessly. And you could see just how it was kind of eating away at his sanity as the game went on. And he's everywhere. I mean, you probably got more Mark Hamill Joker in this game than maybe the other 2 games combined. I would say easily, because you'd crawl on a vent and the Joker would be in the vent with you talking. Yes, you rounded the corner, you'd be sitting there.
Yep.
You open a door, the Joker would be out there. You're flying across the city, he'd be there.
I also feel like he was genuinely funny.
Yeah.
Like when you remove that sort of he's a psychopath who's gonna murder people, like it gives him room to make a lot of jokes that I actually found myself laughing out loud at, which I never did in the previous games. Like Joker's always fun, but I've never actually laughed at his jokes, I kind of sympathize with him in this game to a certain degree.
And one of the cool things is you have Scarecrow and Arkham Knight, 2 big threats that are looming over this. Like that story is continuing through the whole game. But then you're also really vested in this kind of third wrinkle with the Joker and what's happening to Bruce Wayne, because you've seen what happened with the other people that Bruce has imprisoned these other Jokers, and he's keeping them like quarantined in a secret lair of his that he has, not the Batcave, but another one he has in Gotham. And nobody knows about these people. They just disappeared, and he's studying them. And obviously he knows there's something going on with him as well.
Yeah, there's like a missing poster for the old guy at the very opening diner, too, right behind the counter. That's kind of a fun touch.
And by the way, as soon as you walk in that diner, Sefton Hill, the director of the game, is right to your right. He's the first character you see. He kind of waves, and the camera spins. The police officer, first-person cam spins, and he's there for a split second. I thought that was kind of cool, kind of a Stan Lee-esque Marvel move. But as we go through the game, you learn that, obviously there's the identity of Arkham Knight that comes into play. And
which, before we go too much further into that, I want to point out that you actually called that, like, when we saw the cover, like when they came to pitch for the cover, after they saw it, you were telling us about it. You were like, I think I know who that is. And you were right. I don't know if you want to spoil that yet in this conversation, but you called it like years ago.
I think we could go right into the Arkham Knight. That's not the biggest spoiler in the game here, or the biggest discussion point, but Arkham Knight, big mystery tied to who he might be. And the first image we saw, we'll kind of play off of that. The first image we saw was Arkham Knight masked, and he had the 2 pistols, and the mask was very kind of rounded. It had like the bat ears on it. But the second I looked at it, I was like, that's got to be Red Hood. And that's a famed Batman villain from I guess they touched on him in Origins, the old Joker version of him. But he's a key player in the DC universe. He's been there for a long time. And he's Red Hood is Jason Todd, who used to be one of Batman's Robins. And he was an absolute failure as a character in creation that DC let fans vote on it. Like, should we keep this guy alive or kill him? And fans just wrote in, like, kill this guy. So they killed him off in the 80s in a story called Death in the Family. And they play off that in the game. And that's one of my favorite parts of this is, I'll let you guys weigh in on this, is those little kind of vignette moments where you see, it's not a cool moment, but it's a really fascinating moment where Barbara Gordon meets Joker. Joker shows up at her apartment, and you see that whole sequence play out. And then you also get one with Jason Todd, where Joker is brutalizing Jason Todd. You know, he figured out who he was. You know, took off his mask, has him chained up, and he's beating him with a lead pipe.
It's a real Theon Greyjoy situation.
But what did you guys think of those? And you, again, you get it internalized from Joker and Batman's perspective of these things happening. What's kind of your take on those little moments?
I mean, I thought the way it was presented is really cool. Like, it just sort of happens. Like, you sort of get this bizarre Joker infused flashback of, like, it looks like it's really occurring in the space, but it's like a flashback. I mean, it was really affecting, but they did kind of play their hand a little early, because once they started showing that, I think it was pretty clear
who it was at that point?
Did anyone not know who it was? Like,
not up to that point. I was still sort of like,
I was hoping that it was like maybe someone different or tricky, but like, yeah, it seemed like Jason Todd was the most obvious choice. They did another kind of Rocksteady fib before things came out, where they're like, this is an entirely new character created by Rocksteady. So when you ask them stuff like, oh, is it Jason Todd? Like, they're like, oh, you know, it's a new guy, so don't worry about that.
don't worry about it.
What helped me believe that initially is that, like, they haven't planted any seeds for Jason Todd in the previous two games.
Yeah.
Right.
And I was like, wow, you got to build it up, because, like, how are you going to build it all and then make the payoff happen in this game when there may have been like a Jason Todd poster or something weird in the old games, but nothing too on the nose. Yeah. So when they started right when they're like, immediately when Joker said, oh, anything about Jason Todd, like, even just like, hey, didn't you used to have another Batman or another Robin before Dick Grayson and Tim and all that? And immediately, just even the slightest mention of Jason Todd, I'm like, well, that's obviously who it is.
So I went into the game thinking, okay, it's got to be Jason Todd. But then I saw that Arkham Knight had like $1 billion, more than that, $1 billion worth of tanks in an army. I was like, who could this be in the DC universe or in the Batman universe? And then you start seeing like the LexCorp towers. You hear Lex Luthor on the voicemail.
Yeah, that was a cool
I was like,
touch,
maybe it's like tied in with the Superman universe, and maybe this is going to kind of bridge the way for maybe a new Rocksteady game or franchise. And then it was just like, nope, we have no explanation how he has all these tanks.
So
it's Jason Todd.
That's not something I missed then, where he got his money from?
No, because it's just a dumb comic book thing, I think.
My hope
I was thinking that the final ending would be like, I'm the true financer of all this stuff.
Yeah.
And like, it wasn't anything like that. Obviously, we're not going to touch on that just yet. But even the bad guys are like, whoa, these guns are the best I've ever had, and like, this is real cushy, and like, you know, where does he get all this cash? And it's like, even the bad guys want to know.
I thought they were setting it up for that. I was hoping, and I thought it would be like inheritance from the Joker. Because, like, presumably the Joker just has stockpiles of money that he doesn't know what to do with because he's not a functioning human being.
He probably invested in Apple early on.
Or something, yeah.
Yeah, seriously.
I thought that would have been a cool
stocks.
I thought that would have been a cool explanation of, like, Joker's final, like, FU to Batman was like, I'm going to screw up Robin, and then I'm going to give you a ton of money to deal with it. But I don't know, I guess that just kind of
the government is completely powerless. They're like, well, you did write it in a document.
He's got Swiss bank accounts, so
yeah.
And Jason, you know, Batman finds out it's Jason. It's like drama, and then Jason has his moment of redemption, which is
pretty quick.
It is very quick, kind of cheesy. You could tell they'd really kind of wedged that into that. But at that point in the game, you're really not focused on that anymore. You're like, okay, cool, we know who that is. Get your dumb tanks out of the way. Let's get back to the Joker and Scarecrow stuff, right? And one thing before we get to the endings and kind of the Scarecrow conflict, Rocksteady was not afraid to kill characters in this this trilogy. I mean, the Joker's gone, and then throughout the game, Poison Ivy dies.
Oh yeah.
But before that, you also think that another female character, Barbara Gordon's dead.
Right.
And you see a very convincing moment of her beautifully framed by Rocksteady, where she's under Scarecrow's fear toxin and she picks up a pistol, and blows her brains out. You don't actually see the trigger shot, but Joker walks right in front of her and gives you the pistol sign right as the gun fires, and then he moves out of frame, and you see her like slumped over. I was like, that is super powerful. I can't believe they just did that. Obviously, they undid it,
Right.
saying it was just a hallucination, another hallucination.
Yeah, she appears on the roof at a key scene with Gordon, Batman, Barbara, and then was it Scarecrow was up there with some of his henchmen, and he was basically says like, "Okay, Gordon, you kill Batman, or Barbara gets pushed off this roof." Right?
And that all ties back into the very first line that is uttered in the game, which is, "This is how," I don't know the exact line, but "This is how the Batman died."
Spoken by Gordon.
By Gordon, yeah. And so he shoots Batman. Batman goes off the cliff.
Shoots
or
him
off
right in
the building.
What they've established is the strongest part of his armor.
Yeah.
Right in the bat symbol.
And everybody assumes he might die, but obviously he's not dead. Batman's fine. He's alive and well.
Yeah, that was just one of those conceits of like, well, it's okay, it's happening in a cutscene, so stakes are raised. But like, I could probably fight all these guys up here if I needed to, if this wasn't a cutscene.
Yeah.
And then that transitions into the big end game point of Scarecrow facing off against Batman. Batman's still just losing his mind, not from Scarecrow's toxin. I guess it's maybe a cocktail of that and the Joker toxin. So he's hallucinating. Joker's everywhere, and in his vision, he's driving down the street. Everybody is a Joker. For certain segments, battles, he's going against just Jokers, and I want to bring that one up. He is absolutely, he's no longer holding back his punches when he's fighting those Jokers. And then one of the last moves in that sequence, he mimics Bane from the old comic book Nightfall, and he picks up the Joker, smashes Joker over his knee, breaks his back, and then I think there's like another couple of seconds left in that fight, and that fight concludes. But that sequence, I was like, okay, that's a nice little call out for comic book fans that he did the Bane move to kill off a Joker. But then, I guess we should talk about the ending first.
Yeah.
The word Nightfall is very important here, but Bruce Wayne reveals his identity to the world.
Because Scarecrow has him at that point.
Yep, and Scarecrow's filming him, and Bruce is,
Takes off his Dead Space helmet.
he takes off his Dead Space helmet. I love the technology.
That is really cool.
Takes that off and reveals who he is. Everybody's watching on TV, live TV.
He makes Gordon do it, right?
Yep. So there's a really nicely written moment between Gordon and Bruce there. I thought that was handled really well. And then things start going pretty crazy at that point when Bruce starts to become more the Joker than ever as he's strapped in there. And
Scarecrow jabs him with like a
more
crap
toxin.
load of
Yes,
toxin
right.
right in the shoulder, right there.
his little Freddy Krueger gloves. I love it. And so Bruce is tripping like nobody's business and actually becomes the Joker in a sequence.
He like imagines he sort of imagines what would happen if the Joker did ultimately take over, which was such a weird and cool segment to like, hey, just kill everybody. This has been this is a thematic throughout the whole series that Batman doesn't kill, but you're the Joker now, so you need to murder everybody in this room.
Every villain in Arkham Asylum, and you are in Arkham Asylum at this point. And Joker is he has a tricked out version of the Batmobile, which is super cool. I wish you could play the game with that.
Yeah,
because it has the smile on the front of it. It's white. It looks super cool. But I mean, he's just unloading on all the inmates in Arkham.
And when you fill up your like ultra Batmobile move, you've got the killing joke, which is you fire all your missiles out at the crowd, which is a nice nod to that comic.
And then it goes to first person, and you're running around with like a shotgun or something as Joker. And all these, almost like Doctor Who with those the angel statues, all these Batman statues start popping up and kind of taunting him and messing with Joker's mind.
And it's like a common refrain there too that according to Bruce Wayne, his interpretation of the Joker's biggest fear is that the Joker will be forgotten.
Right.
That people will just move past him.
And so as this is going on, eventually, there's just statues everywhere, and eventually Batman comes in and starts fighting the Joker. And that's the big final conflict is you could beat up Joker as long as you want. I mean, it's just, and he's defenseless against Batman at this point. Like Joker can't do anything to him. And all you have to do is end up, what do? You throw him in a chamber or something at the end, or a grave or something.
Was that supposed to? I kind of looked at it as maybe this is silly, but like it was like all these like hanging cages. Are those like Batman's like inner demons, like that he has like caged
It might
up?
be,
Is that,
yeah.
like,
I mean,
idea?
obviously,
Dead parents in one. He was
very-
made fun of in high school in another and stuff like that.
it's very artistically done.
Yeah.
You know, it definitely left open to interpretation. But you throw him in there, and then his eyes change from the Joker green or whatever to being Bruce again, and he's free of the Joker at that point. And then the ending kind of starts playing. What did you guys think of that kind of conclusion with the Joker, that last kind of conflict?
It was weird because so much of it was just him having this fight inside of himself against what he thought of the Joker. So, I mean, those guys are so closely linked that that's basically what the Joker was there for the whole time, is this Bruce Wayne wrestling with that void.
Right.
And you could take away the tainted blood and the fear toxin. I think, let's not forget that Batman was just a very unstable person to begin with.
What?
Yeah, I know, it's pretty controversial.
A guy wearing a
opinion
bat
there.
costume?
Yeah, so I mean, he's pretty insane to begin with, and I think that combination of those two other factors and kind of pushed him way over the edge. And it was interesting. I kind of wish in a way that it had been more of a fight, not just inside of himself.
Sure.
Because you're just imagining all these conversations and everything. The Joker obviously had no say in any of this at any point, so we don't know for a fact that the Joker's biggest fear was being forgotten, even though we can assume that's what it was, and it was a really cool moment. But then if you step back and go, okay.
And it's all designed as gameplay. That's the tricky thing for Rocksteady is he's this big menace in your mind, and then eventually he's frail, almost forgotten.
Yeah.
How do you deliver that as gameplay? I thought they did a pretty good job of making that interesting and giving it different dynamics along the way. And then that gives way to the two, once you finish that, the game is over. You're Batman, a healthy Batman, supposedly.
That's because he injects the Scarecrow with the fear toxin and blows his mind.
And Scarecrow's been trying to blow up Gotham through this whole thing.
Yeah.
He actually does kind of succeed in releasing the fear toxin, which is important for the final ending. So Gotham is just covered in a cloud of a fear toxin, which looks really cool in the game.
Yeah, that part was cool.
But eventually, it clears all that stuff. Joker's apprehended, and
You used the bat fan to get rid of it. Right?
he did. Just
Driving
underneath
around with
Gotham.
like a big old fan on the back of his Batmobile.
Blow it to Metropolis.
If you haven't played the game, that is exactly what happens, and don't worry about looking into it or anything.
Yeah.
But then that gives way to the second ending, which is, which you
Nightfall.
get. Yeah, it's called the Nightfall Protocol, which again is a key thing. So if you know what happened in the Nightfall story,
Before we go too far into that, what I thought was cool about the overworld is that now everyone knows Batman is Bruce Wayne.
that is true.
Yeah.
And you hear all the dialogue change for all the goons who they're like, "Oh, I'm going to sue Bruce Wayne. This is going to be great. He snapped my arm in Arkham City." And, just them talking about the death of Poison Ivy. And it's just really strange. And even when you do the final apprehensions of a lot of the extra bosses, which are a big part in getting to the Nightfall, even they are just like, they get that little conversation on their little ride back to Gotham PD in the back of your car. They're like, "Oh, I can't believe it was you the whole time, Bruce Wayne." And
I
blah, blah.
I did most of those before getting to that point, so I
Yeah.
never had anyone talk to me about that. That's really cool.
Yeah. So there's different dialogue that is triggered at
I wonder
that
if I can go
point.
talk to them in their cell, and they'll talk to me as Bruce Wayne. I'll have to go check that out.
And there's different things. If you do that stuff without having the Joker with you, you'll see it differently too. Sometimes some of those sequences are different when the Joker's there in your mind. But getting up to that ending, then Bruce Wayne, you see Wayne Manor, Vicky Vale, reporter who's been through Batman forever.
Kim Basinger.
Right.
She
She's
wasn't
up
in
front.
Batman forever.
Batman comes down and his bat wing lands. Everybody's like freaking out because Bruce Wayne's Batman. There's
He's
people
got the-
outside
he's got the
protesting.
yeah, he's got the helmet off and everything.
Yep. He just doesn't care anymore. He opens the front door. He confronts Alfred. Alfred's like, "You sure you want to do this?" And he's like, "We have to."
Yep.
To keep them safe.
To keep them safe. And the doors close, and seconds later, Wayne Manor explodes. And it's just flames everywhere, debris everywhere, and it's implied that they're dead, right?
Yep.
Obviously, they'll probably not find corpses. We'll never know what happens there, right?
It's not just a regular explosion. It's the kind that like, boom, curtains are going, and then it just like implodes on itself in like a boom blocks structure.
Boom blocks are great.
So they're saying there, Nightfall could be, we got to get rid of Batman. Like, that whole thing's got to be done in that moment. So that's how that second ending ends. And then if you get all the Riddler trophies in the game, you get a third ending, which really adds some context to Nightfall and what's going on in Gotham after Wayne Manor is destroyed and Bruce is supposedly gone, right? Yeah. And what we end up seeing is some criminals.
Well, actually, I had a question about that. We see Gordon. He's wearing a suit.
Yes.
He's mayor.
And Tim Drake texts him and says, "Don't forget the ring."
I think he's going to marry...
Is it Robin and Oracle's
yeah.
wedding? Is that what it is?
That's what I'm thinking.
Okay, that's what I assumed. Okay.
And then, so this is sometime later, and then we see some criminals assaulting a family that is very much like Bruce Wayne's, from Crime Alley. They even have the pearl necklace fall on the ground, mimicking that same moment when Bruce lost his parents. But before they can kind of finish the job, the camera pans up behind the criminals, and you look up on a rooftop, and you see a Batman-like figure up there.
He's like, "Hey, didn't get the memo. Bats is dead."
Yeah, Bats is dead. But then this kind of supernatural-esque like swarm of bats starts
raises him,
circling Batman, raises him off the rooftop, and then fire in the sky, just crazy bat symbol right in front of, like, it swoops down, it's right in front of the criminals. Crazy explosion of light and fire, and then the Batman kind of swoops in even closer in a split second. You don't really get a good look at it. I went frame by frame. He looks a little younger, more demonic, but and then that's where the game ends. It fades to black, and that's the ending of that game. I have some theories in this. I want to ask you guys what you think of this final sequence. What do you think's going on there?
I think it's worth noting that Gordon's monologue is very much focused on the concept of like fear.
Right.
That's important to criminals. So like what I think it is, which I imagine is like the pretty standard sort of theory, is that the concept, for lack of a better term, of Bruce Wayne is dead. So he's just full time. Like, Batman is still alive though. Like, he's not going to get killed by an explosion. And I think he's sort of co-opting Scarecrow's fear toxin for his own purposes now to kind of help with his crime fighting night job. So I don't know. What do you guys think?
Maybe some kind of aerosol
Yeah.
that he can apply more like discreetly.
I think it's one of those squeeze bottle ones as opposed to aerosol. So it's like just going like that.
Yeah.
So you're thinking maybe he threw little darts down.
So it's not like carpet
injected
bombing
them.
everything.
Something,
but
yeah.
I don't know.
But I think it's still Batman. I don't think it's anybody new.
Or maybe it's a new Batman.
Or it's Scarecrow, maybe, taking up the mantle because he's gone crazy.
I don't think that's it.
No way. They wouldn't let him out.
Any other takes on this?
Well, when Bruce Wayne, right before he blows himself up, says,
And Alfred.
yeah, says we've been doing this we have to do this to protect them. I think he means his Bat family, because now that they know he's Bruce Wayne, it's only a matter of time before they try to figure out who everyone else is and go after their families. So basically, he's just doing it to protect everyone close to Bruce Wayne, because once Batman is supposedly dead and blown up, there's no reason to like, well, we knew it was who it was now, but like, how can we leverage that anymore? It doesn't matter. So I think it's kind of like a, the Christopher Nolan Batman thing where he does a little fake death, does a little traveling to Europe, doing his own thing, doing a little retirement.
Goes on dates with Catwoman.
With Alfred, yeah.
And Alfred.
Yeah. And he's just kind of leaving Gotham behind, I don't know if he officially sanctioned this new Batman, which is my theory. There is that mission with Azrael, which I'm at the very end of, but I don't know if you get there's a choice there. You get to pick if he succeeds you or not.
Yeah, he promises, like Batman promises that everybody can be the next Batman through the course of the adventure. So he's got his pick.
And that ties into the name Nightfall. And that's what we were saying earlier is Nightfall in the comic books, what happens is Bruce's back is broken by Bane. He can no longer function, but Gotham needs a protector. So Jean-Paul Valley, Azrael, takes over as Batman and is just this menace, a killing machine. Like, so Bruce eventually has to heal up. You know, it takes months and months and months, but Azrael as Batman is he's sharpened his claws and he is just obliterating villains. It's helping the city, but Bruce is like, this is not what the symbol of the bat means. So Bruce comes back and takes him down. I think they're implying that through Nightfall, this heavy insistence, showing the backbreak, I think that was the first hint, going to, you know, saying the Nightfall protocol of getting rid of Bruce Wayne as Batman. I think that transitions to probably Azrael as who takes over in that instance. The other theory out there that I'll throw out there is once Gotham was affected by that toxin, it still exists in the world, and there is no Batman. These criminals are not seeing anything. It's a hallucination. That they might be seeing because Gotham is just a mess at this point.
Oh, so it's just everyone's got a conscience. Again, basically.
So it kind of goes back
like
into
that.
the whole Joker thing at the beginning of the game. You know, like it's just in your mind kind of thing.
I have a new theory.
Yeah.
You know who else had access to that fear toxin? Stag.
What?
So Stag is the new Batman. The old guy.
On that note, we should end this. But that is the story. So it's open to interpretation. I thought the ending was beautifully done.
Oh, it was really cool looking.
The whole story in the game, I absolutely adored. I thought they did a fantastic job. Do you guys agree?
I was really sad.
The best story they've done.
Oh yeah, I think so. Were there other like any little minor spoilers that we should talk about? Like I thought the Hush story, like I felt like that was built up in City a lot, but then kind of just sort of like thrown in there. Like there wasn't a lot to it. I did like picking Hush up and breaking him through the desk, and
You spend like 10 minutes with him.
yeah,
and that's it.
I liked the fake out of thinking it was Bruce Wayne, but it just I was kind of hoping for more. I felt like they built it up a lot in City. I spent a lot of time looking for Hush.
Yeah, and
in City.
that kind of was like, again, I kind of took that as fan service for comic book fans.
Sure.
These are arcs that existed in the comic books with him doing his face just like Bruce.
Yeah. I had a question. I had another question for you. Have there been any like I've read a lot of Batman comics, but are there any that focus on the idea of like his identity being revealed to everybody in Gotham? Has that ever happened?
Oh boy.
Like I know there's one where Bruce Wayne goes to prison.
I think
right?
it happens, but it's always somehow taken back in a really stupid way. Like this is the first time where they just shot it out there, and it's like this is how we deal with it. And like
they'll do things. They'll do things like having someone else in the suit as he's Bruce. You know, or he's Matches Malone, and
okay, so that's
we could get really deep. into this
Matches
stuff,
Malone,
but we won't. But
so that's a pretty big thing for a Batman story. Then it's like knowing knowing that Bruce Wayne is Batman. Like that hasn't been done a lot.
I love that
or in
Rocksteady
way.
took liberties and killed characters, made their own story. You know, it started with pieces that built off of familiar comic books and locations and all that, but they made City their own. You know, that was an idea that they kind of did themselves, and then they just kind of kept going with that story. And I love that they kept it all tied into Joker. And that really kind of opens the doors for their next trilogy. Like, who could they focus on? You know, if they go back to Batman or if they go to Superman, because there's a lot of hints there.
Yeah.
I hope they get the chance to do another superhero game. I wouldn't mind them doing more Batman. They might be like, oh my gosh, no, we're done. We did the Batmobile, we did the city. Like, please let us do something else. But I hope they get the chance to do it again.
it would be cool to see where they take this, especially with the crazy fear Batman versus the Superman stuff. You got to wonder. I want them to continue in Batman if that's where they're passionate about. But if they want to try to crack the Superman nut and figure out how to do that, that's also really cool.
Why not do World's Finest? Combine the two. Like, you get more Batman, and then instead of the Batmobile, maybe Superman will be better.
Obviously, that's where the movies are going right now.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
that's
that
a
comes
big
out
thing.
next year.
Here's my question too. WB Montreal did Origins, of course. They also got a lot of thanks for helping out on this game.
They did the DLC, the Batgirl, that comes out next week. Next Tuesday. They did that DLC. So Rocksteady did not develop that one. That was done by WB. And I'm sure there's a lot of shared technologies and ideas and stuff between the two studios. They're really quick. Their last, the last moment of Arkham Origins was a tease for a Suicide Squad game. I don't know if you guys finished that all the way through, but it showed Slade Wilson, Deathstroke, in his cell saying like, let's assemble the team. And the team is Suicide Squad.
Well, he shows up in Arkham Knight, so obviously he's not getting
His
the
team
squad
was
together.
his tank squad. But thanks for watching, everyone. This is Game Informer Spoiled and the Game Informer Show. We'll see you next time.